Sorry about that. Had the loop on the video still. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Sorry about the technical difficulties. We are live. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Writing Gold Standard podcast. My name is Zach Hernandez. This Sunday evening, I'm joined by my co-host, Matt Llewellyn, and our guy, Mike Andrews of Nothing But Niners. We have a great show planned for you this evening. If you are tuning in on Twitter, head over to youtube.com/49ers Hive. Join from there so we can see and interact with your comments. We're not ignoring you. We just can't see you. Once I get all that word vomit out, Matt, how are you doing this Sunday evening?
I'm doing great, Zach. Wished the baseball game would have went different, but it is what it is. But I'm excited to get through this list. So let's jump right into it, man.
Yes, sir. Mike, you had a very interesting list. We're going to go over it shortly. But before we do, how you doing?
I am well, man. I'm ready, man. I've been mentally preparing, and I think I got all my excuses and everything ready. So I'm ready to rock and roll, man. Happy to be here. Okay.
You call it excuses. I call it reasons. Let's get into it. Matt, do you want to start getting into yours first?
Absolutely. And so the way that I kind of structured this is I did it where we each scored our teams, right? Like how we thought they were. And then I used a point system to determine which way they would all turn out. So this is the red and gold standard list. It's an aggregate score. So the team with the most points obviously is the lowest ranking. The team with the least points is the highest ranking. That's who we placed higher. So let's start it off with number 32, the Houston Texans. We rated overall as the worst team in the NFL. So I had them 31st. Mike had them 31st. Zach, you had them 29th. I don't think there's a lot to say on the Texans. They stink. They're going to stink. Davis Mills, the only thing good about him is how long his neck is. He probably can wear some little scarves and stuff. This is a bad team, bad franchise. It's coming out that they have to settle because they knew about some certain massage stuff. It's just not a good franchise. And that's going to be a lot of the teams at the bottom are just bad overall organizations. What do you guys think?
Go ahead, Mike.
Well, even where you complimented them at Davis Mills, the way I came up with my rankings, I had, a couple different scores there for the quarterback, and 10 was the worst that you can get. That's what I had to give him. I haven't seen anything to prove that he's a middle tier, and I definitely haven't seen anything to prove that he's elite. So right now I have him as a grade of replaceable. It doesn't mean that he can't be better. It doesn't mean that he won't be better. But right now, I mean, that's one of the few bright spots that they had on that team. I think that the strength of that team is the offensive line, and that's just not going to be enough to put you in, to put you in a top of anything in the NFL.
It was tough grading them, to be honest, but before we get into it, we got a big super chat here from Gray Fox 198. Make Mike a regular. The chemistry you guys have made this pod my favorite 49ers podcast. Wow, thank you, Gray Fox. We appreciate it. Mike is a huge addition to the show. We really appreciate any time he makes the time to come on with us. So shout out to Mike. I think the Texans, like you guys said, there's not much to say. I don't know why I felt a little more optimistic about the Texans. Obviously, I had them the highest out of everyone here by 2 spots. Maybe I like Davis Mills a little more. I don't know. But I think that as far as towards the bottom end, yes, but not the very, very bottom. And that's probably because I have a little personal animus there myself. But we can move on to number 30 or 31, excuse me.
Number 31, the Seattle Seahawks. I had them 29th. Mike had them 29th. Zach, they were your dead last team. Why don't you start us off with your reasoning behind that?
We've said for years, without Russell Wilson, the Seahawks would be a bottom 5 team, especially after their whole Legion of Boom era burnt out. And it was clear that Russell Wilson was carrying the team beyond maybe a usual amount of good quarterback does. But now that he's gone, we talked about this last show. We're hearing reports that Geno Smith is beating out the quarterbacks they have there. They lost out. I don't even know if they were in, but they lost out on the Baker Mayfield trade. And now it's looking like their best option were to be either trade for or wait and sign a Jimmy Garoppolo. That's not a very good situation. They clearly chose Pete Carroll over Russell Wilson, and the surrounding cast there isn't looking that great. Rashad Penny's looking good. DK Metcalf looks good. But outside of that, there's not too many promising pieces in Seattle to make me say this is a contender, this is a good team. And I know they swept the 49ers last year, but that was with Russell Wilson. Things are going to change. And like I said, I just loved putting them at 32, so I had to.
All right, Mike, what do you got?
strength of their team, believe it or not, is their wide receiving core and their secondary. And even those were, middle of the pack. I did give DK Metcalf the elite rate ranking, but that's about it. And if it weren't for that, they wouldn't have even been that high. Like you said, they were what'd you say, 29th, I believe, on my list. They were, let me see, 1, 2.
Yeah, it's down at the bottom on the ticker. Yeah, how he scored them all.
Oh, okay. Oh, nice. Yeah, so I had them 29th, and I'll be honest with you, they were on my ranking, they were significantly better than the Texans in my last ranked team. So it's not all bad, but it's definitely not good.
Yeah, I agree. Anytime you lose a potential Hall of Fame quarterback in Russell Wilson, you got an aging Pete Carroll who just seems to get more and more disconnected from the talent base the further he goes along. They drafted really well at the beginning of his tenure. He was coming from USC. He knew the players in college. He knew a lot of the coaches. He had that sort of pipeline that he could go and find people. The Seahawks have not drafted well recently. I know DK is a find, but DK slipped in the draft. I mean, he went lower than people thought he was going to go. Their first round selections have just been bad. And now, as Zach alluded to, you're looking at a quarterback battle of Drew Lock versus Geno Smith, and Geno Smith is winning. That's bad. I would have ranked him the lowest in the league had it not been for a couple of other factors. I think, Pete Carroll's a Super Bowl winning coach. He deserves a little bit of respect. They do again have a good receiving core with DK and Tyler Lockett. There is some talent there, but they're going to really struggle this year without the quarterbacks. And I don't think any of us are mad about that. So they're looking like the bottom of the NFC West, like pretty handily. All right, moving on to number 30. Oh, you got something else, Mike?
Oh, no, I was just saying 205 points on my scale, man. That's bad.
That was really bad, yeah. All right, number 30, the Atlanta Falcons. I had them ranked 30th, Mike 26th, Zach 31st. The Falcons were a team that really struggled defensively last year. They gave up way too many points. And that was with a veteran Matt Ryan to kind of help them out. What are you going to do in terms, you see somebody like Calvin Ridley who just dips out in the middle of the season. They're not going to get any better. Russell Gage went to Tampa Bay, so you lose a little bit there. You're running out Marcus Mariota, who hasn't been a starter in a couple of years. That defense is still really bad, and now you don't have the firepower to kind of back it up and keep yourself in games. I wouldn't be surprised if the Atlanta Falcons are one of the worst teams in the NFL.
I can go next too. I know a lot of people are excited for a Marcus Mariota reclamation project. I unfortunately don't think it's going to turn out that well for them. I like Marcus Mariota, but I don't think he's starter quality, especially at this point in his career. There's an argument to be made, sure, when he first came out, but at this point, it's beyond his sell-by date. You touched on a lot of the pieces there, Matt, that there's really not much to be excited about. They got a really good defensive line, or at the very least defensive lineman, Grady Jarrett, that I can think off the top of my head. But other than that, not a lot going on. Not a lot going on in Atlanta. What do you think, Mike?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of self-explanatory. I actually they had an average offensive line grade. Their defensive line was just, man, like you said, you got a name, but is he elite? Not elite, but he's good, right? But that's about it. Everyone else is like replacement level on that defensive line. It's just not a good team. I don't know. I don't know what else to say. Whoever Marcus Mariota, like, yeah, it's, like it's
just
I wish
mad,
I could say something,
right?
like,
It's so underwhelming. You're just like, ugh, Marcus Mariota, ugh.
Right. Like, I wish I could say something like positive, like, this was a good thing about their team when I'm looking at it, but I just don't see it. I don't see it. And I'm not going to beat around the bush. Like, they're not a good team. They're not a good team. I did have them with how many total points? 231. So better, much better than the 205 for the Seahawks.
Yeah, I think, there is some separation from the absolute, like, bottom feeders in the league. But it's not as much as like you see the top teams. I mean, NFL is always about parity, but the haves and the have-nots, particularly right now, there's a huge gap in between them, and these first couple teams are just really bad teams. That kind of leads me into the next team, who I ranked as the absolute worst team in the NFL, and that's going to be the Chicago Bears. I know a lot of people are excited about Justin Fields, but I'm out on Justin Fields, and I'll tell you why. Because the Bears are out on Justin Fields. In the most critical time of his development, you get rid of Matt Nagy, right? Who, for whatever his foibles were or whatever, was at least decent enough to help out Mitch Trubisky take them to the playoffs a couple times, right? Offensive-minded guy. They hire a defensive-minded head coach. They ship out Allen Robinson. They draft for positions that don't really help Justin Fields right away. And you expect this kid who looked like a deer in the headlights last year to take a meaningful step forward? I don't think so. And there's already rumblings out of Chicago that the new coaching staff and the new GM, they're not exactly sold on Justin Fields. If you're already out on your second year guy, then how am I supposed to buy in? The Chicago Bears are a trash franchise. They've been a trash franchise. And they wasted Khalil Mack. They wasted all of these guys. They had a humongous defense, like top 10 defense in the league. They couldn't do anything with it. They're perpetual bottom feeders. I mean, you go through the Jay Cutler era. They go to a Super Bowl on the back of one of the best defenses of all time in 2007, 2006. But Rex Grossman is your quarterback, so you can't sustain that window. It just time and time again, this franchise gets the quarterback wrong or doesn't supplement what they have. This team stinks.
Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, the same thing you said. Justin Fields, I did give the not replacement level. Yeah, actually it was. It was replacement level based off of what we've seen so far. And that's saying something considering, that's a first round quarterback. But I'll be honest with you guys, a lot of first year quarterbacks I didn't have high grades on. But there's not much else positive about the Chicago Bears. I think their offensive line had the highest ranking for me on their charts here, and then their special teams unit was decent. But that's all I got for them. And they also had a good running back. Their running back was middle of the pack. Not the worst, but definitely not the best.
So I just want to note, while I was doing a little bit of research for this, I believe off the top of my head, Nick Wright had the Bears going like 11-6 or something crazy like that this season, which I cannot fathom. I didn't even click on the article. I just saw the headline. I thought that was ridiculous. I think the Bears will be lucky if they flip that and win 6 games this year. Justin Fields, I'm not completely out on him. I still think that there is a little bit of a chance the Bears can fix it, but it's all due to their own fault. I mean, Matt, you laid it out perfectly. They hire a defensive-minded head coach. They don't give him any weapons. I think they just traded for N'Keal Harry, however you pronounce his first name, right?
Bust,
so definitely.
That's a New England cast off, and New England isn't exactly flushed with talent.
Yeah. Did they hire Richard Hightower? I didn't even know that. So he went to Chicago. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, they did. So just to be clear, we were just ranking rosters, not coaching staffs, right? And not even well, coaching staff is part of it, but we're not talking about scheme or anything like that. Just the individual players. That's it. So be very, very clear with what we're talking about, because
these are paper grades. People can underperform or overperform or whatever. Injury could happen, this and this and that. This is just on paper what we see, like what's a likely outcome. So yeah. All right. Next on the list, number 28, the New York Football Giants. I had them ranked 28, Mike 28, Zach 27. So we're pretty on the nose with this one. I'm not a believer in Daniel Jones. I think he fumbles too much. He just looks Even in the draft when he was coming out, I was like, dude, they're taking a kid from Duke. Like, why? I don't get it. Saquon Barkley, between all the injuries and underperforming, looks like he's a colossal bust. You have some good weapons. Kadarius Toney looks pretty good. You got a couple of other things, but it's just not enough. I know they have a new coach that they're working through, and maybe It's the old offensive coordinator from Buffalo who really helped out Josh Allen, and maybe he could do wonders with Daniel Jones, but I just don't see it. There's not enough talent there. I just don't think that they're very good.
I agree. Daniel Jones, I didn't understand the pick when they made it. I thought maybe there was something amazing that I wasn't seeing, but I was like, okay, obviously I think he's a likable kid, but talent wise, there's not much there. And again, Barkley's almost never on the field. Even if they have good receivers, they don't have anyone to throw the ball to. The most memorable Giants play I can think of is like a Daniel Jones 60-yard run that I don't even think he made it into the end zone for. So
no, because he tripped over his own feet and fell down.
Just a perfect example.
Encapsulation of the Giants. It's perfect for them. And I want to give flowers to I want to give flowers to Brian Daboll, who deserves it. He did a great job with Josh Allen. So that's the coach of the Giants now.
Yeah. Yeah. And I by the way, I do think that Daniel Jones has some talent. He's just got to be coached up better. So again, it's what we've seen so far, and there's nothing to write home about. Of the teams that we have discussed all the way up here at 28, they have the second best wide receiving core. Like you said, the talent is there in Kadarius Toney, Sterling Shepard. Like they have talented guys. They just got to put it together. So we haven't seen it, and that's about all I got on them.
All right, number 27, the Detroit Lions. I had them ranked 23, Mike 30th, Zach 26th. I think they're doing something, and I think that the big thing that's going to hold them back is Jared Goff, right? Swift is a good running back. They've started to put some weapons for Goff for whatever that's worth. The defense has steadily improved. They're not good, but they're not terrible anymore. They're not those joke Lions, right? And you can just take steps forward, and you can see that they're, in a lot of games last year, they were pretty competitive. It was almost like a weekly thing, right? Their coach is just like, very entertaining, first of all. But second of all, they seem to just barely miss out on a win, or they would give up a late lead. It builds character, and they can go one of two ways. And I'm erring on the side of optimism for the Lions, which is why I had them ranked number 23. It's still bottom half of the league, but with a little bit of weakening in the division from Green Bay, which we'll talk about later, I think that there's opportunity there for them to take one or two more games. And overall on a talent level, yeah, Jared Goff is not very good, but this sets the table nicely for a pretty stacked 2023 quarterback draft. Maybe Detroit's able to make a move and get a franchise guy, and then 2023, 2024, now you're looking at a Lions team that could be closer to playoff contention.
I'll go. I don't know. They were promising. They were, like Matt said, they were competitive, but to me, there's just not much there. I really like Dan Campbell. I'm rooting for him. I want him to succeed, but I don't know if they'll win much more than the Bears will win, which is 5 to 7 games, most likely. Just with that roster, it's not impressive. What do you got?
Okay. I think they're going to sweep the Bears this year.
Okay.
I'm going to call it now. I think they sweep the Bears.
See, all right. So this is where I'm going to disagree with you. I like that. All right. We found something to talk about really quick. All right. Their linebacking core and secondary are very, very, very bad on paper by name. I think if you have, if you have the running back for the Bears and the quarterback take a step forward, I think you eat them up. It looks like a team that you're going to be able to march down the field on and just score. I'm not saying they're going to be the worst scoring defense in the NFL, but I think when it comes down to it, who do you have more faith in at this point right now? Is it going to be second year Justin Fields or 12th year Jared Goff, which probably isn't 12 years, but who do you have more faith in?
5 for him.
Right. So, but who do you have more faith in though? Like who?
Jared Goff.
Wow. That's
Jared Goff's been to a Super Bowl. Watch Justin Fields last year. He looked completely overmatched anytime they asked him to pass the ball. When he was scrambling, he looked great because he's an athlete, right? Anytime he had to sit in the pocket, his pocket awareness was garbage. We all saw that hit that he took that took his helmet and his bandana off where his eyes bugged out. And I was like, holy shit. Didn't even see. And the dude wasn't even on his blind side. It came straight into his face and he didn't see it. So for me, because of the pedigree of Jared Goff, which isn't much, but it's more than Justin Fields. I got to give it because, like I said, the Bears organization doesn't even look like they care about Justin Fields. So why the fuck should I? That's where I'm at on that.
All right. I it's fair, but I'm not counting QB wins as a stat. And that's as close to a pedigree as Jared Goff has. And I think, again, that's being the benefactor. Yeah, Sean McVay, so it's like saying, well, never mind, I'm not going to do it.
I mean, what you're asking me is if I'd rather eat dirt or like eat rusted nails. I mean, they're both terrible, but
yeah,
I got to pick one. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the dirt would be better for you. Don't do the rusty nails, please.
Before we move on, I just want to shout out to Warriors World because I just got my new shirt, and I just got to throw that out there because I think it's beautiful.
I saw that, man. I thought it was new, but I wasn't going to say anything. I like that, man. I like that. Matt, man, 23rd. That's
bro.
good.
A lot of these teams at the bottom, they're all garbage. It's definitely not saying a lot, dude.
Yeah.
Don't read too much into it. Like, I think they're great. I think anything under like the 16th team, it's all garbage.
Gotcha.
It's just the degrees of how stinky is your garbage. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I got you. Literally 1 point more.
I went over this multiple times and I was like, God damn, dude. Like, where do I even put the Lions? And I'm like, I don't know. Kali says Fields has a higher ceiling than Goff. Yeah, but they're both tiny homes, bro. Like Fields doesn't have a ceiling if the Bears don't believe in him, and that's a problem. That's what I feel like. So
right, they got to build around him.
Yeah, moving on. Number 26, the Jacksonville Jaguars. I had them ranked 26th on the dot. Mike 24, Zach 28. Zach, you haven't ranked really low. What are you thinking on them?
It's just they have a lot of young talent. Obviously, Trevor Lawrence is the big one. But it really is just a matter of how long is it going to take for those kind of roots to grow or plants to sprout, or whatever metaphor you want to use for it. I think it's going to take a couple of more years before they actually start to see a little bit of results there. They were promising last year in spurts, but other than that, they're to me a little bit better and have a better plan version of Chicago Bears. They have a little bit of pieces in place. Are finally able to get Urban Meyer out, put an actual coach in there who can actually develop Trevor Lawrence. But other than that, I don't think that there's too much there going on yet. They play in a pretty weak division, but maybe in another year or two, they can start to see some of those results from those high draft picks.
Mike?
I wish I could have given their quarterback a lower grade. This guy does not look like a number one overall draft pick. Like this guy, he looked like a poor man's Jimmy Garoppolo. What does that even mean? Like what does that equal? Very comfortable across the middle of the field, but that's about it. That's really about it. And I don't know. I don't see the upside with this team right now. And they're the Jaguars. It's like it's funny because the Jaguars, because they always pick so low, they get good athletes. And so you would hope that their roster ranking would be better, but it's just not there. It's not there.
See, I'm a little bit different from you two fellas. I think that there's a lot of talent there, and I think it's addition by subtraction, right? The whole Urban Meyer thing was completely a train wreck. And when you ask a rookie quarterback to come in and you want him to assume leadership of a team that the coach can't even be a good leader for, that's an uphill battle. And I think that as opposed to the Justin Fields situation, going out and getting a Super Bowl winning coach in Doug Peterson, who is an offensive mind, shows that the Jaguars ownership group and leadership has confidence in Trevor Lawrence that he's the guy, right? They drafted, to supplement what he can do to help him out. It's a complete 180 from what the Bears did. And I just think that when you get rid of a coach who kicked a kicker on the sideline, didn't know who Aaron Donald was, and was wrist deep in a co-ed at a bar, that's just, you're improving your roster just by doing that. Doug Peterson's a serious guy. I know that Trevor Lawrence had a terrible rookie year. He really did. I don't think any of the rookies looked all that good, including Mac Jones. And he was the best of the bunch overall. I think they all struggled. Rookie quarterback struggle. But this organization looks like they are putting their faith in Trevor Lawrence. I would expect him to take a little bit of a jump. They're about where I ranked them in the overall, number 26. They're not great, but it's you should see some improvement, and I think they'll be better than they were last year. And that's about what 26 gets you. You go from the first pick to like the sixth. That's it's really not that much better, but any improvement is welcome for this team. All right, we are moving on. Number 25, the Carolina Panthers. I had them ranked number 22, Mike 27, Zach 24. I had them ranked high. That's solely based off the Baker Mayfield trade and contingent upon Christian McCaffrey being healthy this year. If those two things don't happen, they're going to be just as bad as they were last year. They're not a great team. There's not a lot going on there, but I never underestimate a coach who's on his last legs and that their head coach is on their last legs. This is like he's auditioning to keep his job, and that puts some extra motivation. I think that a quarterback battle between Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold will kind of like juice up the position a little bit. Not to anything special, but I mean, Baker Mayfield's better than Sam Darnold. Let's get that out of the way, right? They'll be the bottom of the NFC South. They're competing with Atlanta for that position, so it's going to be a back and forth battle. I just think that if you look and you tell me Marcus Mariota and the Falcons roster or Baker Mayfield and the Panthers roster, I think that the Panthers are just a little bit better. Again, it's degrees of trash, right? And I think the Panthers just smell a little less trashy.
I agree. I'm not as down on Baker Mayfield as a lot of people are. I don't think he's a top 10 quarterback by any means, but like you said, he's an improvement from Sam Darnold. And I think he I would say Baker Mayfield going from Sam Darnold to Baker Mayfield adds 1 to 3 wins to the team overall. And they have pieces here or there. Christian McCaffrey, definitely injury prone, but if for some miracle he's able to stay healthy, maybe they can put together something. I'm interested to see how this Robbie Anderson, Baker Mayfield works out, because Robbie Anderson kind of publicly said no when there was rumors that they were going to trade for Baker Mayfield. So that I'm just interested to see how that plays out. But
but who cares what wide receiver 4 says? That fool's a bum.
I agree. I don't understand how he talks like he's putting up, Julio Jones in his prime type numbers or Calvin Johnson numbers. Talk about retirement. Okay, go retire. It's not going to impact anyone that much. So that rant over. Mike, what do you think?
Yeah, I gave Christian McCaffrey the elite running back position. Only the second one that I gave out so far tonight. The other one, believe it or not, went to Cordell Patterson. As far as talent and what they can do in the Atlanta, oddly enough, the same division that we're talking about here. But these guys they're going to be a tough team to watch. I feel bad. My cousin's a Panthers fan, and we're planning on going to that game. And it's like Matt said, this guy's coaching for his job. And if things don't start well, and I mean like your first 8 games, you got to come out of there. You got to come out of there at least 4-4. This guy might be the first coach fired this season. He's now on his 4th quarterback in 3 years. Like they drafted a guy, they traded for 2 already, like, and then he inherited one. But this isn't looking good for this guy. Matt Rule, he's really on the hot seat.
I think he's going to be back in college by the end of the season.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like he's going to be gone quick. He could be the first fired coach, which doesn't speak to the roster, but he's got to figure out a way to do something better with the talent that they have in the building. So good luck with that.
DJ Moore's good, dude, but I think Collie said DJ Moore ain't no scrub. I'm talking about Robbie Anderson, who's like wide receiver 4. You need to put over your quarterback, dude. You can't just be out there like, no, I don't want that guy. Like,
in his defense,
I'm sorry, you don't get a choice.
Was that before they got him or right after they?
Yeah, that was before they got him.
Oh, okay.
And he also, in his defense, he said that it wasn't anything against Baker. It was him showing support for Sam. He said, Sam was my dude. I was trying to say, I don't want any other quarterback. It didn't matter who it was. I was trying to show support. Take it with a grain of salt. That's what he said after.
Right. Hey, he should teach a bicycle class because he's spinning.
Yeah, that was a good PR little pool right there. I like that.
Yeah. Now, if we were going based off of the rumor mill, this team would be number 1, particularly its quarterback, but number 24 is the New York Jets, and that little cougar lover, Zach Wilson, hooking up with his mama's friends, allegedly. The Jets, listen, I'm still a believer in Robert Saleh. If you look at what they did in the draft, they drafted really well this year. I have them number 25 overall. Again, still trash. Mike has them the highest rated at number 20. I think you just start putting stuff together. And again, it's just incremental improvement, right? You get better year over year. Is Zach Wilson going to take a step forward in that system? It's a derivative of the Kyle Shanahan system, and you want to see him make improvements. It's going to depend on what they go with in terms of like their offense, their scheme, but their offensive line improved. They got a little bit more help at the wide receiver spot. They improved in a bunch of different areas, maybe not to the degree that a lot of people hope for in New York, like a worst to first type of situation, but enough that, they're not going to be, again, as similar with the Jacksonville Jaguars. They're not going to be the laughing stock of the league. They're going to be kind of competitive in some games where you're just like, oh, wow, they did a really good job. I think you're going to see more of the Jets team that caused Antonio Brown to quit in the middle of a game. And, that's all you can hope for out of the Jets.
You watch these guys, and I look at their talent on the defensive line. They had an elite rated defensive lineman there. They have an elite player in their secondary, but they got to learn to put it together. I think Robert Saleh gets to go ahead and finally start coaching the way he wants to. You're going to see some better defensive play from the New York Jets. Give them something to be proud about over there, something that they can pound their chest about. And you got to hope that Zach Wilson takes a stride. But again, middle of the pack. I didn't quite call him replaceable, but he got so far a 10, which is what all the other quarterbacks have had so far, and that's not enough. So we have to see more. Obviously, rookies, like you said, we got to see more from all of them.
I'm surprised how close we actually all did get with these rankings so far. I know that there's 1 to 4 spot differences, but for the most part, we all basically thought the same with these teams.
Don't worry, it's changing on the next one.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm
wondering when you guys are going to get to my last team, because this has been bothering me. Is this it?
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll get there. Go ahead, though, Zach. Finish up, and we'll go on.
So, I think that there's a lot of talent in New York, and I think that depending on Zach Wilson taking that next step, they'll be in a much better position this year than they were last year. The AFC East is a little more open without the Patriots being there. Obviously, the Bills are sitting at the top, but it's a lot more open as far as who's going to take second place, the Patriots, Patriots, Dolphins, or Jets. So I'm excited. I think Robert Saleh is going to be able to kind of coach his team, like Mike said, the way he wants to, and they got a good defense there. Now it's just a matter of the offense catching up. Let's move on. Let's hear this next spot.
All right, Mike, talk your shit. Mike's last ranked team is number 23 overall. It is the New England Patriots at 23. Wow. I had him 18. Zach had him 18. Mike had them dead last. Mike, what is going on?
This roster is trash. Bill Belichick deserves so many accolades. When I stopped and looked, all right, so let me, here's my excuses, my little caveats, right? I looked at only the starting 22, but based off of 11 personnel, 1 running back and 1 tight end, and that means you have 3 wide receivers versus your nickel defense. So that is 4 defensive linemen, 2 linebackers, and then 5 DBs, whether you safeties and your corners. So when I looked at it that way, this team is terrible. They are an absolutely terrible team. Devontae Parker is your best wide receiver. Kendrick Bourne, my guy, but come on, it's Kendrick Bourne. Jacoby Myers. All right, so then you got Big Trent Brown, probably the highest graded player on that offense other than Devontae Parker. Isaiah Wynn, I mean, come on. Like, what are we talking about? And then Mac Jones was Mac Jones, like you said, one of the worst. I mean, a rookie. We have to see more out of him, right? Then you flip it over to the defensive side of the ball. Malcolm Butler, how old is he? Like, what is happening here? Who on that defense strikes fear in anybody? Like Lawrence Guy? Jalen Mills? Devin McCourty. Oh, that's right. How old is he? Like, every time I thought, like, oh, shit, they got somebody here, I'm reminded again, it's like, yeah, but this guy's like Jesus' age. He can't. What is he going to do? How much longer is he going to hold up? So I don't know, man. This was a tough one for me, and I was surprised. I went back and like regraded them again because I was like, this can't be right. This can't be their score. Listen to this. They scored 187. You guys know what that is on the police line? They're dead. It's over. It's homicide. They got killed. I'm sorry. This is the worst roster I looked at as far, again, 11 personnel and nickel defense. I'm sorry. I don't know how you guys saw it any different.
Zach, you want to go next?
Sure, I'll go next. It's tough because they obviously don't have a lot of big name players, but it's just the way Bill Belichick is able to get the talent out of what he does have. That's what he's famous for. And obviously the main thing was Tom Brady's now gone, but I think Mac Jones was solid enough that they could actually win enough games to get into the dance. Yeah, Joey said it here. Matt Judon's a good defensive lineman. They have promising pieces here and there. Obviously, I don't have them ranked very high. When I have them 18th, so just on the back end of middle of the pack. But I would not put them last overall. Definitely would not put them bottom 5. The teams that we just went over, Seattle, Atlanta, Houston, Jacksonville. I cannot fathom saying that Patriots are worse than them.
Can I counter?
Yes, sir.
Ask you guys some position by position, just for fun. Which quarterback would you rather have right now? Seattle's quarterbacks or the Patriots quarterbacks?
Patriots.
Patriots, right? That's where it's going to stop. Seattle's wide receivers or the Patriots wide receivers?
Seattle.
Okay. Seattle's secondary or the Patriots secondary?
Neither are that great.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm trying to think.
The quarterback was the only.
I'm going to say push. I'm going to say push on that.
Oh, okay. All right. Whose tight end would you prefer?
I'm okay with Hunter Henry.
He was on my fantasy team. He's good. He's solid.
All right.
Who's Seattle's tight end? I don't even know off the top of my head.
I have Seattle's tight end list. Hold on, let me pull it back up here. Let me pull it back up here. This guy was freaking killing us all last year.
It's Hollister? Jacob Hollister? Is that still him?
They have him listed as Noah Fant from Denver.
Nope. They just signed him though, right? Like he wasn't there last year.
He's trash. No Fant.
Noah Fant is trash?
Yeah.
Are y'all? Oh, okay. See, I get it now. All right. I don't have. Listen, I did this with no bias at all, like complete no bias. And as much
you're wrong.
As much as I wanted to hate on Seattle, and by the way, it's not like I had Seattle super high. They were my 30th ranked team, so they were down there also, but they just weren't worse than the Patriots.
Mike, last year Noah Fant for the Broncos, 670 yards, 4 touchdowns, 68 catches. Hunter Henry, 50 catches, 603 yards, 9 touchdowns.
Yeah, and that's because they didn't.
Hunter Henry's better in the red zone, bruh. And think about what Mac Jones is going to do. Mac Jones is going to utilize his tight ends. By the way, they signed another one too, and I'm forgetting his name off the top of my head. It was the guy from Tennessee that they stole. Jonnu Smith.
The tight end.
Yeah, Jonnu Smith is still there too. So they got 2 tight ends that are actually pretty decent. So I don't hate on that. But my thing is like it's results, right? They made the playoffs last year. Did their roster get better or worse? I think it got a little bit worse. So you go from a top 16 team down to number 18 for me. I think they don't make the playoffs this year.
And let me just throw this little caveat in there again, right? This was based off of their projected starting.
They get 5 wins just for Bill Belichick.
Well, I had to ignore Nelson Aguilar, Ty Montgomery. You know what I mean? Like Tyquan Thornton, Kendrick Bourne, Devontae Parker.
So see, when you start getting into the depth, then you got a lot of things that you can throw at somebody. Yeah.
Right. So I had to ignore certain things. Like you said, Jonnu Smith. I only did it based off of 11 personnel with 1 tight end, and that's going to be Henry. I assume Henry's going to be the top dog there, and then Smith will be the second guy. They like to run that 2 tight end set, but I couldn't do that for each and every team, knowing what they prefer to run. So I just picked 11 personnel and nickel defense.
Before we move on, this is an interesting question. KB or Juwan Jennings? Because I know I'd take KB.
For what?
the Niners had to sign one
wide receiver. I mean, I still think. Listen, Juwan Jennings came out last year, but like track record wise, it's got to be KB right now.
I think Niner fans are hoping Juwan turns into a KB, but it was promising, but he wasn't quite there.
They're different though.
I'm going to say Juwan Jennings for one reason. When KB was here and doing his thing, we had no wide receivers. He was the Niners' leading receiver for like 2 or 3 years straight due to consistent injuries, right? KB, I don't know if he would make this roster right now. And I think Juwan Jennings does. It's not KB is my guy. He is my guy. But you think about this for a second. He's not going to take Danny Gray's spot. He's not going to take Debo's spot. He's not going to take Ayuk's spot. You're literally asking if it's going to be him or Juwan Jennings. And Juwan Jennings brings more size, more physicality across the middle, and he plays with a little bit more passion. I know KB is a passionate guy. He likes to dance and everything, but I mean, I'm going to take the size if that's the case.
That's fair. And you're separating these guys by like the micro degrees, right? It's not even. Yeah. So, dang, man. I can't disagree with you. It's just this on a spot question. I just pick who had the biggest track record or whatever. That's fine. We are going to move on. I'll start on this one since I have them ranked low. This is my number 27 ranked overall team, but they're number 22 on this list. It is the Washington Commanders. Trash franchise. They went out and paid a second-round pick for Carson Wentz, who is a trash quarterback who breathes wrong and stubs his toe and will be out for a season. Terry McLaurin is a baller. I love Terry McLaurin. He's really, really good. But outside of that, they don't have a ton. I don't like their offensive line. I don't like their tight ends. I don't like their running backs. Their defense is aging. Ron Rivera seems a little out of touch with the way football is going nowadays. They don't score a lot of points. They've had a lot of things go on in the offseason. There's this dark cloud hanging over the organization. Daniel Snyder is having to be subpoenaed before Congress because they have this whole scandal. Teams that are mired in scandal do not do well. It's just not something that happens. It's a bad organization. Chase Young is there, but Chase Young was supposed to be this like way better than Nick Bosa guy. And he's not better than Nick Bosa. He's not. And by the way, he's coming off an ACL injury, so we don't even know what he's going to be this year in terms of like how long it's going to take him to recover and get back to his pre-ACL form. Is it going to be immediate like Bosa? I don't think so, because he did it later in the year than Bosa did. Bosa tore his ACL in week 2, right? That gives you a lot more recovery time. I think Chase Young tore his in like week 9 or week 10. They were well into the season when that happened. It's tough, you hope, hey, you get a facelift, you get some new jerseys, but apparently the new name was an L. They're just taking L's all offseason. So for me, they're really bad, and I don't know. Mike, let's go to you. You have them ranked pretty high.
I do. And again, this is all looking at the names on paper and everything. Their quarterback, Carson Wentz, should be respectable, right? Like, he's not the worst. I have him as middle of the pack. Not elite, but definitely not replacement level. Why now? That's not counting injuries. I know.
Wait. He's not replacement level? The Colts just replaced him.
No, because why did they replace him though? It's because of availability. And no, they probably replaced him because they didn't like what he did at the end. But he was probably playing through some sort of injury. So he's all right. Carson Wentz is better than what we saw from all the rookie quarterbacks last year. I'm putting him in that middle tier. Like we know what he is. He was on pace to be an MVP. The Super Bowl year that they went, even though Nick Foles was the guy who got him there. No, like he is definitely better than the rookies that we saw last year. And so I can't have him as the same grade as the rest of those guys. And then there's also their wide receiving core. I really like their wide receiving core, and their defensive line. It's one of the best in the league if those guys can be healthy. You mentioned the injuries and all that stuff, but I was not factoring in injuries when I was doing this. So looking at the talent and the roster itself, they got a respectable roster here, man. It's not the best, but it's definitely not the worst. Far from it.
I agree.
By the way, Brandon says Indy didn't get any better at quarterback with Ryan. That makes it even more of a problem. They thought that Wentz was such a piece of shit as a leader because he had like decent stats, right? 21 touchdowns, 7 picks, 94 quarterback rating, but he just seems to not be well liked. And they couldn't wait. Chris Ballard couldn't wait to get him out of there. And the fact that Washington paid a second round pick for him is crazy to me. Anyway, go ahead, Zach.
Yeah, I mean, I have them 21, so I'm not too high on them, but I really do like their receivers. I think Carson Wentz is an improvement. Gosh, if I remember correctly, they had first, obviously, they had Ryan Fitzpatrick, and then I forget the quarterback that. Do you remember?
Heineke?
Heineke. Thank you. Yes. I'm like the feel good story. Taylor Heineke. That's an improvement now with Carson Wentz. Maybe not much of an improvement, but it is an improvement. Riverboat Ron. Hate the name, damn commies, but they're middle of the pack for me. They're middle of the pack, and there's nothing too crazy there, but they play in the NFC East. Maybe they'll have a chance to compete.
As far as the name goes, like Washington Commanders is pretty terrible. Like Commanders, you could have made that work. You could have made that work if you, instead of Washington, you were like the DC Commanders. That would have been better, right? There were ways to improve that, but yeah, it's just a L all the way around. They did their uniform reveal, and I'm like, okay. Like they should have, I don't know, they should have gone with like the Hogs or something. Everybody wanted it. But they just didn't.
If I were them, I would have done, if they wanted to continue to honor the Native Americans like they said, I would have said the Washington Natives and kept everything else the same. You wouldn't have had to change anything. Uniforms, the logo.
You could have done the Natives, and they go back to, you remember their 1960s throwback where it has like that decorative spear on the helmet? They could have done that. That would have been better.
Commies.
Okay. What's that?
Commies.
Yeah. Commies. Yeah, I know it's pretty bad. All right, moving on. Number 21. It's a team that's near and dear to my wife's heart, but not to any of ours. The Miami Dolphins, and I have them ranked the highest at 15. I will not understate the addition of Tyreek Hill and the addition of McDaniel to the team. You get an offensive mind in there. You're bringing over again the Shanahan system. We always criticize Jimmy, right? Like, God, he makes bad decisions. He forces the ball in between places. He doesn't do this. He doesn't do that. Tua is a very much more measured Jimmy Garoppolo style quarterback. He's not going to wow you with anything, but he's also not going to make those huge mistakes that you worry about from a quarterback like that. I still think he's a weird prospect. I can't get over the fact that his dad made him left-handed when he's naturally right-handed. That's so weird to me. But the Dolphins have just gotten a little bit better. The Tyreek deal is major. They still have Gesicki, who's a decent tight end. He's going to play on the franchise tag. They were able to go out and get a couple of other things. I mean, they had probably the second best rookie wide receiver last year behind Jamar Chase. I think he led all rookies in receptions last year, right? The kid from Alabama. I'm spacing on his name right now. Jalen Waddle. He had over 100 catches last year, which is crazy. And you pair that now, you got Waddle who's, working sideline to sideline over the middle, those type of things. And you can stretch the field now with Tua. Even though Tyreek said some wild stuff about Tua's accuracy. But, I mean, they signed Raheem Mostert. If he can stay healthy, he helps them out too. There's just a lot to like here. And I just think that with everybody else in the AFC East being weaker besides Buffalo, I think there's opportunity for somebody to climb. And this team with Ryan Fitzpatrick wasn't too far away from a playoff spot. His last year there, they went 10-6. So there are opportunities on the roster with the schedule, with a new coach, to improve Tua, improve the offense, do this and that. And I think the Dolphins could take a pretty big step forward. I have them a borderline playoff team.
You want to go next, Mike?
Yeah. So I think the bright spot of this team is definitely the wide receiving core. I actually have them higher than the Seahawks wide receiving core as a collective. Their offensive line is solid, and their defensive line is okay as well. This team has a lot of potential. It's a dangerous word, right? I know you're not supposed to say it, but it is what it is. And if things can run smoothly over there for them, they have the coaching change and all that stuff. I think I agree with Matt. They could be a team that's a surprise to make the postseason. I like this team a lot. The roster, like again, the potential is definitely there. They just got to put it together. They got to get someone to do something about it. Who did you guys have as their starting running back? I'm just curious. Did you guys have Mostert as the starter over there?
I think they're going to rotate. But yeah, I would say if Mostert is healthy because he's the most familiar with the system, that he would be the starter.
That's what I figured too. Okay.
Chase Edmonds isn't a scrub though compared to Mostert. He started in Arizona for a while.
And this is why I wish I should have done my rankings different. I should have done depth because I think that would have changed everything. You know what I mean? I think a lot of stuff would have been different. So
it's not a bad group, actually. Chase Edmonds, Raheem Mostert, Sony Michel, Myles Gaskin, and Salvon Ahmed. Top four definitely had some NFL playing time.
And Ahmed, we saw him here in preseason with the 49ers, and he was phenomenal. I was actually a little disappointed when they let him go. That's how much I liked him, and what I saw from him. So it is what it is now, but he was a good running back as well. Their worst is a pretty solid guy. So
I was trying to remember where the name reminded me of. I'm like, I feel like I've seen him. Yeah. This all rides on Tua. I could have easily put the Dolphins anywhere from like 10 to 14 if I thought Tua was going to be better. I'm not sold on him. I'm just not. He's got a very weird throwing motion, whatever the hell. I think he's middle of the pack. I really do. And it kind of hurts me to see the Dolphins go out and get Tua as the quarterback in the class that they got him in when there were just so many good quarterbacks that came out of that class. So it is tough, but Tyreek, Jalen Waddle, hell of a receiving core. We just went over the running back core. They got a good defense, arguably one of the best corners in the NFL. There's a lot there, but it all rides on Tua. They obviously got Mike McDaniel putting in the 49ers system. So I think they could maybe sniff a wild card spot, maybe. But as of now, I'm out on Tua.
I mean, it's definitely a make or break year. So, if Tua doesn't get it done, they're gonna look for the next guy, and that's pretty clear.
Bring Fitzpatrick back.
I know, right? No, he's too busy. He's with his beer gut and going shirtless in Buffalo Bills games now. You see that picture from last year? That was wild, dude. He was out there.
Have you seen?
He's got a couple more kids to make before he can field the football team too.
Yeah.
So.
Have you seen the pictures of like giant families wearing Fitzpatrick jerseys, and each one is a different team that he was on?
Yeah,
that's so funny to me, dude.
Yeah,
it's so funny.
All right, number 20. Mike really likes this team. Me and Zach do not. The Pittsburgh Steelers. Mike has them as his 12th ranked team. Mike, what's going on?
11 personnel and nickel packages. It's going to be my scapegoat all night long. So when I broke down their roster, you have a replaceable quarterback over there. You have an elite running back. All right. I like what I saw from him last year. He got the highest grade for a running back. Their wide receivers are okay. Not terrible, but I like Johnson over there. Their tight end, terrible. Just throw that away. But that defensive line, it's probably one of the best in the entire NFL. Obviously helped out by Watt, but it is a phenomenal defensive line. And their secondary, you guys know I had that Akello Witherspoon bias, but I did not let that play a part. But their secondary has one of the top 3 highest ratings for me when I looked at their nickel group. I believe they might have been second overall when I looked at their secondary. I ended up giving them 84 points, and I only see two teams with scores higher than that. So when you factor all that in there, they're a solid team. I'm sorry. No, I only see one other team with a secondary ranked higher than theirs. So that's saying something. There's a lot of elite talent in that package. So it says something, and that's what I went with.
All right, Zach.
Yeah. Going over this, I saw a lot of lists, and we actually went over this either on the last show or one of the previous shows. Why are the Steelers ranked so high repeatedly? I've seen a lot of these NFL rankings that have the Steelers top 10 consistently, and I just don't see it. And just like Miami, who is throwing the ball? Who's throwing the ball? Is it going to be Kenny Pickett, who they just drafted, Mitch Trubisky, who they just signed, who had a sit-out year in Buffalo, Mason Rudolph? I mean, I doubt it, but he did start a lot of games for them previously when Big Ben's been out. So I'm not high on them in the least. They have a great defense, don't get me wrong, and that's why I have them ranked 23rd. They could have been a lot lower if not for that defense. So I don't know. I'm just not high on them. I don't have any faith in their quarterback. Mike Tomlin, still a good coach, but we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty much with you on everything you said, although I will say one thing. I think Tomlin is getting a little long in the tooth in that locker room. There are some guys there. There's some holdovers there. There's too much talking, man. Chase Claypool says he's the best wide receiver in the NFL. He's not even top 15. He needs to settle down. They get a little loose in there. That's Tomlin's style, and I know that that's like very player friendly, but they make a lot of discipline mistakes, right? Trubisky, not a guy that gets you excited. Kenny Babyhands Pickett, not a guy that's going to get you excited. I just don't see it, and you're looking at an AFC North that's really good, but this is a clear number 3 team in that division. Clear number 3, and maybe number 4, depending on how the suspension of a certain quarterback goes. Baltimore is better than them. Cincinnati is certainly better than them. And so what are you left with? You play 6 divisional games. If Watson is back for any of those, the Browns are better than the Steelers. You're looking at the bottom of that division. To me, that's not a playoff team. So I can't give them that ranking because of that. Mike just pulled a crock and smacking around bugs.
I was hoping y'all didn't see that. All right. Of course, there was no. Right. That was the one time there was not a long comment across my face, right?
Moving on. This is a team that I have ranked extremely high that you guys do not. So I will justify myself. Number 19 overall is the Minnesota Vikings, who I have ranked number 7. This is a good roster, dude. This is a good roster. They signed Zadarius Smith, right, to go along with Danielle Hunter. They run a 3-4 defense. You can't sleep on Harrison Smith, who's still a really good safety. Their corners are aging. Pat Pete sucks. That's fine. But on the offensive side of the ball, you got Justin Jefferson, who's electric, Adam Thielen, who is a chain mover, Dalvin Cook, who's one of the best running backs in the game. And would you believe it or not, as much as we like to talk shit on Kirk Cousins, he was the 5th highest rated quarterback in the NFL last year with a 103.1 QB rating, 33 touchdowns, 7 picks. Now you bring in Los Angeles Rams, former offensive coordinator from the Sean McVay system. You get Kevin O'Connell there. You get old Mike Zimmer out the door, who was a defensive mind, unimaginative on offense. And I just see potential in a weakened NFC North for this team to take advantage. I just think that the Minnesota Vikings are really good.
Yeah. So I think I had them ranked the lowest of everybody. So I did give Kirk Cousins the middle of the pack grade, not elite, but definitely the middle of the pack because I respect them. Their offensive line really, really was a problem for me. I think that's what the holdup was. Their offensive line and their tight end group. Good wide receivers.
You don't like Irv Smith? Irv Smith's good, dude.
Yeah, I mean, sure. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe my standards for tight ends are too high. Now, keep in mind, like a tight end on here, the worst tight end and a middle of the pack tight end was only a difference of 4 points on my scale. So it wasn't going to make the biggest difference in the world, but they did get a low rating there. But it's the offensive line. That's the problem. They have a really good defensive line. I like their linebackers as well. And like you said, the secondary has some good players in there. Their special teams unit was a little meh. And I think that's what I was looking at also. The special teams didn't get a high grade also.
Yeah. Just like I said, Pittsburgh, the defense got them as high as it did. The offense for the Vikings got them as high as they did in my list. Justin Jefferson, top 10 receiver in the NFL. Every time I want to say top 3, I think back to the conversation Mike and I had. So definitely a top 10 receiver in the NFL. Dalvin Cook is a very elite running back, great talent. Kirk Cousins, I'd say above middle of the pack in quarterbacking. But I don't know, something about it. I'm not that high on them. I'm just not. Good talent though. Maybe I was a little biased when doing this review and looking back on it. Maybe I would have put them a little higher if I had a second chance, but 22, it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, I placed them really high. I think it's a byproduct of a couple things. You get some dead weight, Mike. I really think that people underestimate how much of a drag that Mike Zimmer became on that team. It just always seemed that he had the red ass about something. I mean, how many games did we see them blow late too? And a lot of that, when you really think about it, comes from execution, which is based on the coaching staff. So you get that coaching staff out of there. You get a coaching staff in with Kevin O'Connell, who just went to the Super Bowl with the Rams, is with Sean McVay, knows how to be meticulous, knows how to game plan, is an offensive-minded coach. Maybe a lot of these mistakes don't happen and the Vikings shoot up the board. Also, just about every other team in the NFC North got worse. So minus the Lions, who were just, you go from being complete dog shit to just like kind of dog shit. So that's still bad. There's opportunity here. And for me, I think it's an easy pick for I think Minnesota is going to win that division. I'm just putting it out there now. That's my hot take, and that's fine. But moving on, number 18, this was a tie between two teams, but I think that, overall, I think the Arizona Cardinals come in at number 18. I had them ranked 17, Mike 21st, Zach 14. For me, again, I'll say this till the day I die. Cliff Kingsbury is trash. Cliff Kingsbury is no good. I think that Kyler Murray is starting to border on overrated territory. He fades down the stretch in seasons, and it's happened every single year that they've been in the NFL. Not to mention the fact that they're going to be without DeAndre Hopkins for 6 games. They did go out and get Hollywood Brown, but, I mean, is that a splash move when who else are you going to throw to? I mean, I'm not impressed with Arizona. I don't think that they draft particularly well. I think that they draft players who are, we talked about earlier, athletes with Jacksonville, where you pick high and so you draft athletes like Isaiah Simmons and people like that for the Cardinals. But are they drafting for need? I don't really see it. And as long as Cliff Kingsbury's there, I don't know. Kyler's going into a contract thing. That again, when you have all this stuff, Ian Sharp points out they lost Chandler Jones too. Like, this team is not, they did not improve from last year. They did not. And they were barely in the playoffs last year. They faded down the stretch like they always do. If it wasn't for Jimmy Garoppolo's Olay interception, Kyler Murray probably has the worst interception in the playoffs. Ironically enough, I think it was against the Rams. Where he just like underhanded it to the dude. Not a good team. I'm not impressed. I don't know. I'm not feeling them.
Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah. Good quarterback, middle of the pack. One of the better running backs in the NFL there. And then it was really downhill from there. I think the offensive line was their next strong point. Their secondary. I mean, the wide receiving core is really, really an issue because they had, I think AJ Green is still there, but he is a very much of a shell of himself over there. It's not the AJ Green or close to it. Like you said, with Hopkins being suspended, and you got Brown, but Brown is it, right? That's pretty much what you're going to the season with. Run game and Kyler Murray, and you have an offensive line. They got to learn to hold up a little bit better. They have a decent tight end, but they got to put some stuff together, and they always fall apart at the wrong time. Are we looking at maybe Cliff Kingsbury being on the hot seat, or do they love him too much over there?
They just re-signed him to a contract, so I don't think he's necessarily on the hot seat, but they're not going to do anything when he's as long as he's their coach. He's not good.
I can go. Yeah, I was looking at the Cardinals and I'm just like, they had a fantastic start to last season and they made it into the playoffs. So I'm like, certainly they're going to be top 10. I mean, think of the Cardinals are going to be in competition for the NFC West again. But I was going over their depth chart and I'm just like, there really isn't much here. Kyler did a lot with Hopkins and the James Conner scored a lot of touchdowns, but outside of that, there wasn't much. There really wasn't much. So that's all I have to say for them. I guess I have them the highest of the three of us, but
yeah, but still, I mean, borderline playoff team. Tied with them at number 18 is the Tennessee Titans. I had them ranked number 24. I'm not high on the Titans. You lose Julio Jones, who wasn't a big deal last year, but you also trade away A.J. Brown. You do replace him with somebody who a lot of people thought highly of in the draft, but it's another year of Ryan Tannehill. It's another year of Derrick Henry having to carry the load. You lose some key pieces. I think that the Tennessee Titans had their window. Their window really was wide open when they got a 21 or 24-0 lead on the Kansas City Chiefs in that playoff game. They blew it there. I just don't see them doing anything going forward. They just got worse.
Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, Robert Woods, Derrick Henry, Austin Hooper. Those are the guys that are going to get the elite rankings over there. And Tannehill is not terrible at all. I have him as a middle of a pack guy. I like Jeffrey Simmons a lot on that defensive line. I'm trying to think of what else was going on. Oh, Kevin Byard. I really like him as a safety. So I was looking at, I think this is a pretty talented team. Harold Landry is over there as well. The talent is in the building. They just got to do something with it. You know what I'm saying? So, but it's going to be a team that is going to go through Derrick Henry and then just rely on Tannehill to not blow it. And that's what they're going to continue to be. So
they got some names. They got some talent. Tannehill is a lot riding on his shoulders, but Henry, Woods, they drafted Treylon Burks. Austin Hooper is solid. They got a solid offensive line, and I really like Harold Landry. So I think 17 is right about good for them after losing Julio and A.J. Brown. So let's move on.
All right, next up on the list, number 16, the Philadelphia Eagles. I have them ranked 19th, Mike 18th, Zach 12th. Zach, you're high on this team. What's going on?
They have a lot going on. And Mike, don't laugh at me because we talked about this. Don't laugh at me. I couldn't justify having them top 10, just like the Steelers that I talked about. A lot of these rankings had the Eagles like 6, 5, 7. That's way too high for me. I honestly felt like putting them 12th overall was a little too high, but they got a lot better this offseason. And Jalen Hurts, I just pulled up a tweet from Jared Bailey, who compared the stats, and Gardner Minshew arguably has better stats than Jalen Hurts. So if it wasn't for Jalen Hurts, I would agree put their top 10 team. But with Jalen Hurts kind of bringing them down a little bit, I think 12 is arguably okay. What do you think, Matt?
Jalen Hurts sucks. They drafted Carson Strong, dude. Like, they have Gardner Minshew. I don't care if they have Devontae Smith. I don't care if they have A.J. Brown. I don't care about any of that stuff. Jalen Hurts was bad in college as a quarterback. He's bad in the NFL. As long as Jalen Hurts is starting for them, which that seems the direction they want to go, we've talked about it all day here. Who's throwing the ball? And Jalen Hurts had like an 87 quarterback rating last year. That's trash. I don't believe in them as long as they have Jalen Hurts. It's plain and simple. That's my entire reasoning for it. Is they're going nowhere fast because Jalen Hurts is going to turn the ball over.
I felt like Jalen Hurts was so bad because he didn't have any solid, consistent weapons over there. They dealt with a lot of injuries. I got him ranked as a middle of the pack quarterback, believe it or not. And just to put, this is going to sound bad, but that's the same score that I gave to Kirk Cousins. And now I feel bad about that. But they have a phenomenal wide receiving core over there, great tight end over there, and their offensive line. It's getting up there in age, but it's a solid offensive line. Now, the thing is, they have to learn to work together with this young guy who likes to move around a little bit. So it can diminish the talent that's on the offensive line if they're not, in cohesion with each other. And I think you're going to see a lot of that. So it doesn't mean that they're all good. Doesn't mean that they're going to be a playoff team or anything, but the talent itself is definitely there. The talent is definitely there.
Who put up the comment that they don't know about Hurts being bad in college? Oh, okay. He was replaced by Tua. Tua beat him out in college. He's pretty bad. So, yeah.
Now I feel dumb for having them 12th. I'm just gonna throw that out there. Now I feel dumb, but yeah, I was trying to justify it. I was trying to justify it in my mind. I'm like, there's so much talent here, but Jalen Hurts really does bring them down. I cannot see them winning,
dude. He's really bad. I don't see it with. There's no field vision. I don't see who's worse, Hurts or Tua, bro. I mean, it's again bad. No, he got replaced due to injury. No, he got replaced. He got benched for Tua. So,
would you rather eat dog shit or cat shit?
Right.
The Eagles have a good roster though, guys. I mean, Jalen Hurts, even if
they got a really good roster, but again, how many times have we seen good rosters get wasted by bad quarterbacks?
Bad quarterbacks, right? And you might see that here, but I mean, like, I'm just looking at their roster again. AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, right?
But again, if he can't get the ball to them, then they're nullified. It doesn't matter if he's not accurate with football, and he's not accurate with the football.
But the defensive side of the ball is also like really stacked. Brandon Graham, Fletcher Cox, Derek Barnett is over there. Darius Slay is over there. James Bradbury and Avonte Maddox. Like, they have some really. Oh, that's right. Tart is over there.
Tart.
He's not listed as their strong safety though. They have him behind Anthony Harris, which is interesting.
I like how Mike's selling out for the Eagles when he has them only ranked one spot higher than me.
Because you guys are like killing them. And I was trying.
By the way, Melissa brings up a great point. The Cowboys always have a good roster, and they don't do shit in the postseason.
Well, that's the Dallas.
We'll get to them though.
That's the Dallas way. Oh
we'll
man, that's gonna be another one. But Zach and I were trying to figure out why so many of these roster rankings had them in the top 5, and I mean, when you look at the names on paper, I think that's why.
Yeah, David Hasselhoff, Tua and Jalen Hurts are going into year 3, brother. So it's not after 1 year. Thank you.
He corrected himself.
Or 2. I can say people are trash after 2 seasons. That's called a trend, my friend. Anyway, I don't think they're trash. I just don't think they're good. Jalen Hurts, I do think it's trash. I think he's not very good.
The thing is with Josh Allen, there were flashes there, and you saw the talent. You saw he was capable, but he wasn't consistent. Talent. Yeah, where Jalen Hurts and Tua, I don't know if they're capable.
And by the way, the Josh Allen situation is like a unicorn situation. It doesn't happen the way that it happened for him very often. He's an outlier, and you can't really. I don't think that's really a fair comparison.
Josh Allen, I don't know if you guys remember, that was my favorite quarterback coming out in that draft class.
I thought you were crazy.
I was in love with Josh Allen. I was looking at the potential, right? It's like, can he throw the ball all over the field? Yes. Is he the most accurate? No, but can he do it? Yes. Can he run? Can he make something out of nothing? Can he extend plays? Does he have a pocket awareness? Right. He checked all the boxes. He was just inconsistent as fuck, and and so his footwork needed to be worked on and everything, but the talent was all there. I mean, if
Brian
you could build a quarterback, it would be him.
Brian Dable did a great job. A great job. Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. Number 15 on the list, the Indianapolis Colts. I have them 14. Mike has them 13. Zach 20. Zach, you are low on them.
Yeah. Their top receiver is the kid out of USC. I'm forgetting his name right now. Is it Pittman? Michael Pittman. There's not much there that I liked. I did like Matt Ryan going there because I think he will help, and he bumps them up from Carson Wentz being there. But other than that, there was not much. I mean, Pittman, Mo Alley Cox, I really like Mo Alley Cox. They have the best running back arguably in the league in Jonathan Taylor. But outside of that, there's not much in Indianapolis. Buck, I got to shout out my guy Buckner, of course. But what do you guys think?
I might have had a little bit of bias in this because Paris Campbell was one of my favorite receivers coming out. He's their top slot guy. Alec Pierce and Michael Pittman, like you mentioned already. But they have a solid offensive line. You got to remember Quentin Nelson's over there. They also have Braden Smith, Jonathan Taylor, one of the best running backs in the league. And I gave Matt Ryan a decent grade. He's a good veteran quarterback, but he's not much better. You know what I'm saying? But I gave him a middle of the pack grade as well. And then you got Yannick Ngakoue, DeForest Buckner. Like they have some guys over there. Quiddy Payne, like
Darius
they
Leonard.
have Darius Leonard. Right. Like the list goes on. They have a real Zach. I don't know how you have this roster ranked so low, man.
Again, when I looked over it, this might have been one that I also probably should have moved up, but I'm sticking with it.
There you go. Stick to your guns.
Yeah,
I
I think the Colts are a jack of all trades, right? I think that they're best in the trenches on the offensive side and the defensive side. I think that's where their best players are. And beyond that, they do everything okay, nothing spectacular. I think that, obviously Jonathan Taylor was a huge hit, right? I always like to see the second year, not just the 1 year where he pops and it's like fantastic. We don't know what this next year will look like. If he stays at the same level, they're going to be really good. It's just going to be dependent upon, can he stay healthy? What does it look like with Matt Ryan rather than Carson Wentz? Was there something that Carson Wentz did by being mobile that actually helped Taylor out and took the defense's focus off of him? And here's the other thing. He's not going to catch anybody by surprise anymore. So they're going to be keyed in on him. And how does Matt Ryan overcome that? How does the offensive line overcome that? Does Pittman take a step forward? Ryan is aging. He's on the decline of his career, clearly. How does that affect what they're trying to do? I think this is an okay team, but not great in any real aspect of the game. Number 14 on the list, the New Orleans Saints. I had them ranked 21. I think this team is bad. Michael Thomas coming off a severe injury. Jameis Winston coming off a severe injury. Alvin Kamara just kind of disappeared. I don't know what happened with him. He doesn't seem like he's as impactful as before. You lose your genius head coach, Sean Payton, and you replace him with Dennis Allen, who is a recycled head coach from the Raiders, a defensive mind. The defense has some players for sure. They picked up Jarvis Landry. I believe they signed Honey Badger, right? I believe they signed Tyrann Matthew.
Yeah, they did.
They have Lattimore there. They have Marcus Williams there. There is potential for that defense to be really good, particularly with Dennis Allen as the head coach. But when you have so many question marks on offense because of injury or because of age or because of performance, what are you actually getting out of this team? What's the drop-off in Jameis Winston's play after an injury and after his head coach who really taught him how to play and really come around? When you take that away, what does that look like? To me, there's huge questions on the offense, and I think that that's holding them back ultimately.
Go ahead.
Go next. I had them ranked the highest, I believe, right, of all of us. I think we're forgetting about how good Jameis Winston was when he was in there with this team, man. They had a good record with him in there. They were moving the ball really well. But it was like 5 games. It was like 5 games, and then he tore his ACL. Like, I need more than that to just to push back. I need more than that. After seeing him throw 30 interceptions in a season, I need more than that. But
how much of that was Peyton, by the way?
He wasn't playing close to that 30-30 though. Like his touchdown and interception ratio was really good while he was in those 5 or 6 games. You're right. It was a very small window, but I got to go based off of that in the system again. And Alvin Kamara, he is an elite running back. You're going to see a shell of himself. But they also have Mark Ingram over there as well, right? Michael Thomas, Chris Olave. I understand we haven't seen much from him, or anything from him, but he's projected to be one of those guys, right? And then you bring in Jarvis Landry as well. Like Pete Andrews, one of the best guards in the league. You have Ryan Ramczyk. You have Cesar Ruiz. Like they have a solid offensive line. And then you go to the defense where they're just loaded up. Cameron Jordan's still over there, again, getting long in the tooth, but he's still that guy. Marcus Davenport. You have, like you said, Tyrann Mathieu, Marshawn Lattimore, and I like Johnson Gardner. Like they have a really stacked team, and their special teams isn't too shabby either. They're up there, man. They're up there. And I'm saying this all, and I got them ranked 21. But
I agree with this comment, David Hasselhoff. If Jameis Winston doesn't get injured, Niners don't make the playoffs. If Jameis Winston doesn't get it, I think he tapped it twice. But yeah, it's kind of a running joke in our group chat. Jameis Winston is quarterback 1. I'm really high on Jameis Winston. Obviously, I don't think he's that good, but he was doing really well with the Saints. And I agree with you, Matt. I need to see more, but it was extremely promising. And also, just to play devil's advocate. He got LASIK after throwing 30 interceptions. So maybe he can actually see who's wearing which color. But they have a hell of a roster. They really do. The Saints are what I think people think the Eagles are roster-wise, names on paper. Going down the list, Mikey, we went through it. Winston, Kamara, Thomas, Jarvis Landry, Chris Olave, and the line is still solid. Ramczyk, Ruiz, Pete. I'm really high. They got a fantastic middle linebacker, Demario Davis. They signed Tyrann Mathieu. They already had Marshawn Lattimore. Or I believe they just signed him, excuse me. I'm high on him. I really am high on him. And again, 16 overall, not too high, but I think they could make some noise.
And Jameis Winston was also like on pace. Like he had 1.9% interception percentage. Like that's the lowest of his entire career. So he would sometimes the system change makes a big difference, and he was doing pretty well over there, man. And it was only 59% completion percentage, but the 14-3 touchdown to interception ratio it's really good. I mean, we would have killed for something like that. Highest QB rate that he's had in his entire career. He was doing a lot better, man. He was doing a lot better.
To be fair, it was against 3 non-playoff teams, but I'll let that go. And also, again,
he balled out against Green Bay.
This dude, he's a career 87.8% quarterback rating quarterback. This is an outlier. You can't tell me 5 games and then expect me to just forget that the motherfucker is Jameis Winston. Like that just doesn't work. He's still Jameis Winston until he proves that he's not.
The training videos enough are good.
He's out there eating W's and shit. And I, you know what I mean? That's what I remember. Yeah, exactly. He's still really weird. He still does weird shit. His workout videos are super crazy, right? He like cried his eyeballs out when Drew Brees retired, which I thought was weird. It's like, the dude for like 11 months. Like, why are you so sad, bro? Like, I don't get it. But, if he comes out and balls out, I will gladly stand corrected. I will gladly be wrong. I've been wrong about quarterbacks before. I just need to see more. A quarterback that I don't think I'm wrong about, and I don't think that Zach is wrong about either. I think we're on the same page here. Number 13 overall is the Baltimore Ravens. I have them ranked 12th, Zach 15th, Mike 10. Zach, you have them ranked just barely in the top half of the league.
Yeah. Lamar is good, and he's going to obviously make plays or score points. Their wide receiver core took a huge hit. They obviously lost Hollywood Brown. I don't know, man. They do a lot with a little, it seems like. J.K. Dobbins is their starting running back. But their wide receivers, Devin Duvernay and James Prochet II. Does that strike fear into the heart of anyone? I mean, just based off names alone, if we're going on talent on paper, it's hard for me to put the Baltimore Ravens above that. They got a solid defense, I guess, but it's a lot of unproven talent. That's how I feel like the Ravens are. Maybe I could have put them below some teams that we talked about earlier, but I guess, I don't know. Historically, they usually end up in the top half.
Here's my problem. Lamar Jackson is good, but he got hurt last year. It's the first season that he had to really deal with injury. If you've seen pictures of him showing up to OTAs, dude got real big. He put on a lot of muscle. I don't know if that will affect his speed or if he was able to incorporate that weight without it affecting him that much, but it's clearly something on his mind. And my biggest problem with Lamar is I have not seen growth out of him as a passer. It's like he won the MVP and then he just stopped growing. He still does not throw, to the outside very well. He can throw some fly routes. He can throw some nines. He can throw the deep ball. But Mark Andrews is like by far his biggest target. Mark Andrews, I mean, if you're playing fantasy, just draft Mark Andrews. Dude's going to get you like 14 touchdowns. He just does not throw to wide receivers. And I know Hollywood Brown is like backtracking and saying like, hey, they're creating a narrative about Lamar. It's ridiculous, this and that. But dude wanted out for a reason. It's because he's not getting anything out of it. Again, without growth, you got a lot of these quarterbacks that are up and coming, taking a step forward. The Joe Burrows, the Justin Herberts and stuff that are just starting to pass him by. And as these guys keep coming into the league and passing him by, you see him fall down the ranking. And there are aspects to Lamar's game that really need to improve throwing the ball. he's accurate in short yardage situations, but intermediately, not very much. The deep ball is like any other deep ball. It's hit or miss, obviously, because it's a low percentage throw to begin with. He does it pretty well, but he puts a little bit too much air into the ball for my liking. I think that a lot of passes get broken up because he's trying to be a little too touchy with it, because coming out of college, people said that he, it was like the Colin Kaepernick critique, right? Everything he throws is a fastball. He doesn't have touch. I think he's tried to work on that. It just hasn't gone his way. If he doesn't grow when his athletic gifts give way to injury, much like Cam Newton, right? And Melissa says Lamar reminds me of too much of Cam in the worst ways. I agree with that. Cam was big. Lamar is not a big quarterback. Lamar is 6'3", like 205 before the season. Now he looks like he's bulked up to like 230. He's gotten a lot bigger. But is that a sign that he knows that he has to change his play style? And do we see a different play style from Lamar that incorporates more passing? Or do we see Lamar try to do the same things, like, I'm bigger, I can still do it, and he just keeps taking hits and keeps taking hits? I think he had 16 touchdowns, 11 picks last year. It was not good. And if he keeps going this route, the Baltimore Ravens aren't going to go anywhere with him. His regular season versus his playoffs is a stark reminder of the step that he still has to take going forward as a quarterback.
I had these guys ranked, I think, pretty high. And
you had him number 10.
Yeah. So when I look at this roster, it's easy to say like their skill positions are what's in question, right? You're looking at the wide receivers, or lack of, okay? But then when you get to their offensive line, there's a lot of elite talent over there. You have the elite tight end. You have an okay running back, right? Elite quarterback. I think his play overall will keep them in any game that's out there. And then their defense, man. I mean, the defense speaks for itself, right? But what you got to focus on with this team is also their special teams unit. Like, they're still coached by a special teams coach. They are always solid on special teams, and I think that's going to play a major part in it. Just the second team that we've discussed tonight, they got over 300 points in my little bootleg rating system. They're a solid team, man. They're a solid team. I don't know how far they're going to go or anything like that, but the roster is damn good. It's a damn good roster. They just got to get some skill position over there. They got to get a better running back and some better wide receivers, or prove to us that the wide receiver position does matter to you guys. Like, if it doesn't matter, you're just going to go with your tight ends, then this roster is constructed perfect for their quarterback, right? We talk about teams not having faith in certain quarterbacks, like the Bears, right? They say, well, what are they doing to help this guy out? Well, what are the Ravens doing? Well, you know what? If this guy can't throw to wide receivers all over the field, let's go ahead and get some good tight ends. They get one of the best ones in the NFL. Let's go out here and get an offensive line that can move well when he starts to scramble. They go out there and they do that. And then give us a defense that's going to keep us in every game. And a special teams unit that's going to give us solid or above average starting field position every time we get out there. So they have built this team around Lamar Jackson, his strengths and weaknesses. So, I mean, I got to credit it. What good is having, like you guys said, Brown if you can't get him the ball, right? So I can't knock him for that. It's a good team structure.
I just think that he goes the Cam Newton route, right? He's elite until he's not, because his body fails him. And outside of his rookie year, when he was sitting behind Flacco at the beginning, he has not played a full season in the NFL. He's missed at least one game every year. And as you age, you don't get more healthy, you get less healthy. That's my main problem. Speaking of other quarterbacks, number 12, the Denver Broncos. I had him 8th. Mike, you had him 17th. Zach, you had him 10th. Mike, you don't like the Broncos at all, do you?
I tried to. I really did. But when I was looking at their numbers here, I gave them the elite rate for Russell Wilson. I didn't like their running back. The wide receivers were okay. Don't like their tight end. Defensive line had the next highest grade, and even that wasn't all that. It was middle of the pack for me. I found it hard to go out there and give these guys a lot of credit for anything. So maybe I'm missing something. Maybe there's players that I'm overlooking, or maybe I just flat out don't know enough about. This was what I looked at, and then what I thought of these guys. I didn't go and look up PFF rankings or anything like that for these guys. Tim Patrick is just tall. Cortland Sutton, okay. And then Jerry Jeudy, should be one of the better wide receivers in the NFL, especially based off of where he was drafted. But I'm not seeing much else from these guys over there. Javonte Williams, that's their starting running back. Like, he's ahead of Melvin Gordon. And Melvin Gordon, even if he's a shell of himself, I don't know. I just didn't see it. So what do you guys have for him? You guys got him pretty high.
So I think that a rising tide raises all boats, and I think that Russell Wilson is a rising tide. I think he's going to make all of those offensive players better. I don't necessarily think that they're going to be the world beaters that everybody's predicting that they're going to be. That defense is pretty good in areas and struggles in others. I think that, man, I saw Russell Wilson. He looked kind of chubby. I don't like that. But, I think that Russell Wilson, I don't categorize him as an elite quarterback. I think he's very good. But there are holes in his game where if you watch it, early in his career, Russell Wilson made his entire body of work based off of, he's almost sacked. Holy shit, how do you get out of that? Oh, man, he's able to run around. And then your coverage breaks down and he's able to find somebody. But on rhythm, on those type of throws, he makes some mistakes. He will put the ball in danger. He will throw some silly picks where you're just like, Russell Wilson threw that. And as he ages and that escapability lessens, I just think that there's problems there. But I still think that he is a very, very good quarterback, like borderline elite, just not what he used to be. Now, I don't know how good the coaching staff is going to be in Denver. I don't know if Jerry Jeudy can get over his drops. He had some drop issues early on. Cortland Sutton had a little bit of a down year last year, but that's because he was coming off the ACL tear. I think he bounces back. He had a season earlier in his career where I think he had 1,100 yards receiving or something. So he's not terrible. I just, I don't know what their offensive line is going to be. There's a lot of questions here. I think that though you can't sneeze at adding Russell Wilson. This team on paper is more talented than Seattle was. And Russell Wilson has made them perennially a contender, particularly on the defensive side of the ball. Denver is much better than Seattle is. So I just think that they're, number 12, again, you're looking at a 5 seed in the AFC. They're not the best, but I think that they're going to make some noise. I think that they're the third best team in the AFC West. Actually, I think they're you know what? I think, yeah, I don't know. I have them, right there. It's they're right there with the Raiders. In my opinion, it's the worst team in the AFC West. But the AFC West is fucking stacked. That's the best division of football.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I'm high. Am I the highest? No, Matt has him 8th. I'm not far behind you with 10th overall. This is a good roster. They almost made the playoffs last year before kind of falling off towards the end of the year. But the wide receiver core, Mike just writes off Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy. They're very talented receivers. Javonte Williams was a stud. He was a stud last year. I don't know the total number of yards, but I had him on my fantasy league, and he was killing it. I know for a fact dude was killing it. He's a starting caliber running back. The addition of Russell Wilson totally helps. They got a solid offensive line. Defensive line alone, DJ Jones, Mike Purcell, 2 former 49ers, by the way, and then Bradley Chubb. They signed Randy Gregory, who I really like, Ronald Darby, Justin Simmons in the secondary, Pat Surtain, excuse me. I'm high on this team. I think there's a ton of talent all over Denver, and the addition of Russell Wilson just put them over for me. But yeah, it's a tough division for them to be.
It is. If there wasn't so much firepower in the rest of the division, I'd have them higher, but there's going to be some rough nights ahead for them. One of their division mates is number 11, the Las Vegas Raiders. I had them 11th, Mike 15th, Zach 9. Mike, not too high on the Raiders, huh?
No, it could be a little bit of my hate coming out. No, I'm just kidding. Again, I did this with no bias at all. I promise you guys. Looking at the Las Vegas Raiders rankings here, I gave Derek Carr the middle of the pack for the quarterback. I gave them middle of the pack for running back. I gave them a really high grade for their wide receivers, and obviously the elite rating for their tight end. Defensive line was their next best feature, better than their offensive line, and that's where I stopped. Nothing else was special about what I saw from the Raiders. They're a good team. Don't get me wrong. They're in the top half of the NFL, but nothing special jumping off the page to me.
I think Devontae Adams is a huge get for this team. I don't necessarily trust Josh McDaniels. I think he's a flake. I don't think that he was everything that the Patriots made him out to be. I think much more of that was Tom Brady than it was McDaniels. But they're giving him a coaching opportunity. Let's see what he does. Derek Carr, I think, is criminally underrated. I think people hate on Derek Carr for no reason. He's not the best quarterback in the world, but he's well above average. You got Darren Waller there. You got Hunter Renfrow there. They haven't had health from Jacobs recently, but if he can stay healthy, this is a team that is improving. You get the clown show out of the building, and I hate to say that because Gruden was very entertaining, but you get that out of the building. You get Mike Mayock, who also is very entertaining, but we knew was a glorified yes man for John Gruden. You get him out of the building. You get guys in here that evaluate talent, that are looking to, add to the team in meaningful ways and not just, I'm going to go with whatever John Gruden says. And you got a team that actually looks pretty damn good. Now, again, third or fourth best in the AFC West, but that would be good enough for a lot of other people. I don't know. I just think you can't underestimate how good the addition of Devontae Adams is. I think that's going to be huge. And I think that, I know Melissa said that he's going to miss Aaron Rodgers. I don't think he's going to miss him as much as y'all think, because Devontae Adams is talented enough that he's just – I saw it wasn't like Aaron Rodgers was forcing Devontae Adams the ball. Devontae Adams was just open. And I think Derek Carr can hit an open man.
They know each other also.
I was just going to say they have tons of rapport going back to, was it Sacramento State? Where did they go to college?
Fresno State.
Thank you very much. Yeah. So I think I was trying to fumble between the Raiders and the Broncos as far as who is the better team, because they're very close. I had them 10-9, but I gave the edge to the Raiders because they just made the playoffs. They have a little bit more recent experience. The Broncos haven't proven that yet. But Max Crosby is a top edge rusher in the NFL. They have great receivers. Josh Jacobs is whatever. But I agree with you, Matt. You cannot overstate the addition of Devontae Adams. That was like the main downfall of this team going into the playoffs, is they really didn't have much going on at the receiver position. Now they got the best receiver in NFL, at least the best route runner for sure. And he's got rapport with the quarterback already. So I really liked the Raiders, and putting them 9 overall, I don't think was a stretch in my opinion for me. What do we got next?
We got your thoughts, right, Mike?
Yeah.
Okay.
I talked about
I just wanted to double check before we moved on. Number 10, the Cleveland Browns. I had them ranked 16th. I don't think Deshaun Watson plays for them this year. And without Deshaun Watson, this team is not going anywhere. Jacoby Brissett is good for 7 or 8 wins, but it's going to be the same old shit with Cleveland. It's just, this seems to me like Jeff Fisher used to say it all the time, that 7-9 bullshit. And this is what this seems like, this 7-10, 8-9 bullshit. They're great at so many different positions. But again, this is like a Dallas Cowboys team where it's like, yeah, you're great on paper, but when push comes to shove, you don't really do anything. They didn't do anything with Baker last year. You subtract OBJ, you subtract Jarvis Landry, you replace it with Amari Cooper, who I'm not high on Amari Cooper recently. I don't think that he has been as good as he once was. I think that, he let CeeDee Lamb overshadow him. I'm not feeling it with Amari Cooper. So for me, without the quarterback, without Deshaun Watson there, again, I just don't see it. Now, if Watson somehow plays, or they only give him 4 games, or they give him time to serve, this automatically jumps the Cleveland Browns into, easily into like the top 6 teams in the NFL. I think Deshaun Watson is that much of a talent that he would improve them. But without Deshaun Watson, I don't see it.
Mike, you have them the highest. What's your reasoning?
Yeah, because it's a good fucking roster, man. Even without Watson, right? Even without Watson, I have them as 7th overall. If you factor in what I would have given them the boost for Watson, they would have been my 4th highest team. So there's still a good team here. Just a short rundown here. You have a really good tight end. You have whatever quarterback you decide you want to put in there. Nick Chubb is A+, right? Amari Cooper, I still respect his route running ability. then you go to the defensive side of the ball. They have elite talent on every single level of that defense. In some positions, they have 2 elite players on that defense. They are a really, really good roster, man. I just what they do and how far they get, that's out of my control. But the names on paper and the talent, it's all there. They have it all there.
And I think, I'm looking at it from the perspective, much like I looked at earlier when I was saying it's about results with the New England Patriots. I think this is the converse of that, right? A lot of this roster is at a similar strength that it was last year, right? You take away OBJ, you take away Jarvis Landry, you replace with Amari Cooper. You could argue that it's like kind of the same in terms of wide receiver talent, right? Same running backs, much of the same defense, much of the same secondary. You're swapping out Baker Mayfield for Jacoby Brissett. Is that an improvement? No, I don't think so. And did they make the playoffs last year? No, they did not. So I'm looking at it from, if they didn't make the playoffs with a better quarterback and Deshaun Watson doesn't play, they're definitely not going to make it this year. And I think that that's where I'm coming from on that.
I think they have a really good roster. I agree with Mike. Jacoby Brissett, definitely replacement level. Whether they go out and get a Jimmy Garoppolo for this 1 year or something like that, that remains to be said. But I think even with Watson,
go back to his way to an AFC Championship game on this roster, easy.
Yeah, I agree with that. But just like Mike said, he kind of took the words out of my mouth. There's elite talent at every position, it seems like. So I'm high on the Browns. If Deshaun Watson somehow gets less than a full year suspension or less than half a season, I'd probably rate them even higher, to be honest with you. Who do we have ninth, Matt?
Ninth, the Green Bay Packers. I have them ranked 13th. So does Zach. Mike has them 6th.
Wow. Mike.
I just think that, again, how long can Aaron Rodgers keep it going? He's going into his age, 40 season? He's going to be 40 this year. He's into like guru shit now. You lose Devontae Adams. You're left with Alan Lazard. They lost Valdez-Scantling as well. I know that they picked up Christian Watson in the draft, but relying that heavily on a rookie wide receiver brings its own set of headaches. And we know how Aaron treats rookies when they don't do what he wants them to do. He will hold a grudge and not throw the ball to them. And I don't think that there's enough surrounding talent for Aaron to do that this year. They lost Zadarius Smith. I feel like there's too many holes in this roster, particularly with Aaron Rodgers commanding the salary that he commanded. It really held them over a barrel. And I just don't think this roster is as good.
All right. So let me just start because I think I had the highest of everybody, right? So when I'm looking at this roster breakdown, I didn't give them a lot of high grades, but the high grades they got were really, really high. So Aaron Rodgers, he's going to get you the highest quarterback ranking you can get. All right. They're running back. Come on. Like, that's the highest rating you can get for a running back as well. Offensive line and defensive line are both very, very high, and that's why they were so good. They had one of the lowest wide receiving scores that I gave out in all of these, and that's including my respect for Sammy Watkins. Randall Cobb is a shell of himself. You got Christian Watson, a rookie, wouldn't give him anything there, and Alan Lazard. I wasn't touching that with a 10-foot pole. But Robert Tonyan is a good tight end. David Bakhtiari he's one of the best. He never mind. I'm not going to say it. He's a really, really good tackle. And so is Jenkins.
He's coming off a big injury though, and that was my problem with David Bakhtiari.
Right, but so that's true. But I didn't hold injuries against anybody doing this. I was looking at the names and the talent only. So you're absolutely right. I'm not projecting what they're going to do this year. I was just looking at the talent. They still have Preston Smith over there. Kenny Clark they have over there as well. Rashawn Gary, for better or worse, he was okay. He's not where they drafted him to be, but he was okay. And then they have some decent guys in their secondary. I like Jair Alexander. I like Darnell Savage a little bit more than most people do. And Eric Stokes isn't terrible. So I liked what I saw from the Packers, but like I said, their top grades for me were Aaron Rodgers, the running back, the offensive line, and the defensive line for sure.
By the way, if people remember, I was on Jair Alexander during the draft process. I love that kid.
I have them 13th overall, tied with Matt. This was tough because I obviously the Packers do well every year, but I had a hard time trying to figure out how much of that was actually due to Aaron Rodgers, and the subtraction of Devontae Adams is huge. We don't know what Christian Watson brings to the table. I don't know, man. Looking at it on paper, I think 13 is just about right. Talent-wise, how much of that, gets brought to the table by Aaron Rodgers? How much of that does he bring out from his teammates? It seems to be a lot every year consistently. So I couldn't fathom putting them higher than that.
All right, number 8, the Los Angeles Rams, the defending Super Bowl champion. I had them ranked 4th, Zach 5th, Mike 19th. Holy shit, Mike.
That's right, man. Fuck the Rams, bro. What are y'all doing? What are y'all like? Do y'all know who we're talking about here, man? Get out of here. Fuck the Rams. No, all jokes aside. So I'm gonna go back here. Los Angeles Rams. Let me make sure I don't do Chargers. Here we go. Right here. All right, they finished with 261 in total for me. Their quarterback, I gave middle of the pack. I do not think Matt Stafford is elite. I gave their running game a middle of the pack grade. Their wide receiving core is very good. That was their highest grading there. But their tight end, offensive line, defensive line. Now, Aaron Donald obviously is going to get you the elite status, but that's just one player getting that. Everyone else is old and looking to find their way. They lost Von Miller. Their linebacking core, I don't know where you guys found a lot to give them. Their secondary was actually the second highest scoring group on here in the groups section. So I don't know how you guys gave it. Wide receivers and secondary were their highest for me. Where do you guys see the talent?
Okay, first of all, I got pushed back on the middle of the pack for Matt Stafford. Dude had almost 5,000 yards and threw 41 touchdowns last year. That's not – he might not be elite, but he's very, very good. He's very, very good. And he's been good. He was good in Detroit. He just –
I had 3 sections: elite, very good, or replaceable. He was definitely in the very good category. He was in the middle.
That's fine. I just think so. Their running back coming off the Achilles, he's going to be a little bit better this year. They lose OBJ, but they add Allen Robinson. I think that's a good pickup. You get him out of wide receiver purgatory. He's coming from fucking Chicago, right? Give him a break, dude. He's played with shit. He had to play with Trubisky and got rookie Justin Fields with a coach that didn't know his elbow from his asshole. So, he'll be fine. You still have Cooper Kupp, who is elite. Like, Cooper Kupp is right up there as one of the best. Higbee, great tight end, right? You lose your left tackle Whitworth, but you also still have some pieces there. The defense still all right. I like the secondary as well. I think Jalen Ramsey obviously is Jalen Ramsey. Even though he got burnt toast a couple times against Tampa Bay last year, he's still like one of the best, if not the best corners in the NFL. There's a lot to like there. I just think that, the reason why I think that they're lower, and I have them ranked 4th just on paper, but I don't think that they're going back to the Super Bowl. I just don't think the motivation is going to be there. And I think that's going to be a big problem. But, the talent on paper is still there for me. They've mortgaged their future for the present, and it shows. They're very top heavy in the roster. But it's worked well for them, and McVay has done pretty well with that. Zach?
Yeah, it's not the system, Mike, because Jared Goff didn't put up those numbers. So it's definitely a little bit of both. And Matt Stafford, I think, brings out the best of this system, which is exactly why Kyle Shanahan was fighting to get him before the Rams did. I think the Rams, I have them. What did I have them? Oh, it's on the screen here. Duh. 5th overall. Is that what I had them? Yeah, 5th overall. I think that's that's fair for them. They have a really good roster. I know they lost a couple of key pieces, but the top 3 receivers being Cooper Kupp, Allen Robinson, and Van Jefferson, that's a hell of a trio right there. I know Allen Robinson has kind of been not great, but that's not his fault. I think he's still a very talented receiver, and Matt Stafford is going to bring that out of him. Van Jefferson is a hell of a receiver. We went through the rest of the roster, or excuse me, the depth chart you guys just did. Aaron Donald, when you have a trio of Aaron Donald, Matt Stafford, and Cooper Kupp, that's going to bring a team pretty high up, both sides of the ball, and Jalen Ramsey, not even to leave him out of it. That's a hell of a group of 4. So I think the Rams are pretty high.
Oh, and I know someone in here was picking on Matt Stafford for his interceptions. Dude threw 601 pass attempts last year. That's a fuck ton. So of course he's gonna have a little bit more interceptions too. That like 601.
Of course he's gonna have a lot of yards.
That's true. That's true. But I mean, again, McVay ain't throwing 601 times with Jared Goff ass. So it's a byproduct of what they had. Number 7, the defending AFC champion, the Cincinnati Bengals. I had them 6th, Mike 14th, Zach 6th. I thought that they got better at the one area where they were really lacking, and that was offensive line. They went out there and spent for the offensive line, and you're protecting Joe Burrow. This is a team that made the Super Bowl. You know, they might be getting cheapskate on Jesse Bates right now, but this was a team that made the Super Bowl with a significant defect, and that was their line. Burrow was always running for his life. Now you're talking about a team that, again, you make a Super Bowl, and what do? You go out and you shore up your weaknesses. Did they get better anywhere else? Maybe not, you know. But, I mean, again, and by the way, Ian Sharp, their best running back was out. I think, are you talking about Mixon? He might have been hurt. You know, so Mixon's still there. You got Jamar Chase. You know, you got T. Higgins. You got guys on the field that Joe Burrow's going to throw to. Joe Burrow took a big step up his second year. If they can keep him upright and healthy, I like the Cincinnati Bengals, man. I think they're really good, and I think that they're the best team in the AFC North, clearly.
Let's hear it, Mike.
All right, so my numbers sound crazy looking at the rankings, but I gave Joe Burrow middle of the pack. I don't have him as an elite running back. I love Joe Mixon. I gave him an elite rating. Their wide receivers, their trio, were the only ones to get perfect scores of everyone else I did on this list. So I'm looking at it, and I'm like, how the hell did they end up so low? Then I keep going. It's the tight end. The offensive line, they actually ranked pretty high considering all the new additions there. That was the highest group. But then the defensive line only had a 42. Their linebackers, I only gave a 10, and their DBs a 29. Special teams was good, though. Special teams was good. So their secondary, their linebackers, and their defensive line, it's really the side of the ball that was not getting all of the highest praise for me. So that offense, though, they did the right thing. They built around their guy. You know, Matt talked about this a couple of times tonight. If you believe in your quarterback, you build around them, and they showed that they do. I like that.
I'm high on the Bengals. Excuse me. It's a rare case where a team actually addresses like the few areas of need and you find the perfect fit. They went out and did that this year with the offensive line this offseason. They were already extremely talented last season. Mike, you touched on the receiving core, arguably the best in the league. Joe Burrow, if he wasn't elite last year, I think we'll see him take that step this year and become an elite passer. They got a good defense, solid defensive line. We'll see what happens with Jesse Bates in the secondary, but I'm really high on them. I was surprised the 49ers beat them last year in overtime, but they have a hell of a team. And I would not be surprised to see them high up in the AFC playoffs. I don't know if I'm going to say representing the AFC because Buffalo, I think he's still going to get through them, but I would not be surprised if it was Buffalo and Cincinnati in the AFC championship game.
Yeah, I have the Bengals rated as my 4th highest AFC team. I think they're really good. Hayden Hurst is going to be an underrated signing. He came from Baltimore. I think he's going to be pretty good. It's just going to depend on what the defense does. Again, if they don't give up a ton of points, then they'll do really well. Speaking of putting up a ton of points, Mike, what the fuck, man? This is your number 1 team on the board. Number 6 overall, the Dallas Cowboys. I had them 10th, Zach 8th. Mike, number 1?
This was, Melissa alluded to this earlier in the chat. The Cowboys always have a good roster, but they find ways to fuck it up, right? This is not about who I think is going to be good. This is not about who I think is going to win. This was all about looking at 11 personnel and nickel packages and what they bring to the table. The Cowboys here, all right. I got Dak Prescott as an elite quarterback. I know a lot of people won't feel that way, but that's fine. Middle of the pack run
Dak
game,
elite and Joe Burrow not?
Because I don't think Joe Burrow's elite.
What's in your hookah, bro?
I'm not even smoking tonight. That's the thing. I'm chilling over here. That's the thing. Like I'm getting roasted in but I knew what I was walking into, so it's okay. But that's not even the thing that like sets them over the top. It's their offensive line and their defensive line and their secondary is really what did it for them, because their wide receivers, they were okay. They got 55 out of a possible 75, so they did good there. But that offensive line is still the Cowboys' offensive line. Their defensive line was okay. They got a 57, but the DBs, one of the highest scoring groups for the defensive backs for me in this whole project here. I'm actually going to pull up the roster here and see if there's anyone in particular that I wanted to highlight. But Dallas, when it all came down to it, man, they had it there, man. Michael Gallup, CeeDee Lamb, Tyron Smith. I mean, come on. Zach Martin, Terrence Steele, Dak Prescott, Ezekiel Elliott. Even if you don't like Elliott, Tony Pollard, both of those guys are good enough to be starters on more than half of the teams, probably less Ezekiel Elliott. We don't know what's going on with him. He's kind of going down right now, right? But you got DeMarcus Lawrence over there. I like Van Der Esch as a linebacker. Micah Parsons, one of the best in the league, and he's just getting started. Malik Hooker, Trayvon Diggs. They have a really, really, really good roster, guys. And I'm not even getting deep here. They have a really good roster. And again, that's what this was all about, just the roster. I don't even think they win the division this year. So let me be very clear on what I'm saying. But they have all the talent in the world. They have all the talent in the world.
I don't think Dak is an elite quarterback. I think Ezekiel Elliott is washed. I think that line is aging. They lost La'el Collins to the Bengals. There are some definite holes there. That defense gave up a ton of points last year. Everybody was scoring on them. And I know Trevon Diggs had 11 picks, but he also gave up like 1,000 yards in coverage. That's hard to put into context. He plays a very risky brand. But again, this is another history thing for me. The 49ers were able to go in there and essentially just clap cheeks in the playoffs. With Jimmy Garoppolo as your quarterback, that was the only reason that game was even close. The 49ers dominated that game from start to finish until like the last, couple drives where they let them back into it because Jimmy Garoppolo couldn't sustain a drive. But the Cowboys, again, one of the best on paper, but habitually fuck themselves over with bad play, with terrible. I do not believe in Mike McCarthy as a coach. And I think that he is just keeping the seat warm for Sean Payton to come in and coach the Cowboys next year. And the reason that they couldn't do it this year was probably for some tampering reasons. Payton probably told the Saints, all right, I'll take a year off. I'll go in the booth. And we all know what's coming, right? Sean Payton's going to go to the Cowboys next year. Mike McCarthy's going to be the scapegoat. And it's just going to be another wild card exit for the Cowboys.
Yeah, I mean, 8th overall. I can't. Mike texted me earlier, and he was just like earlier in the week, like, "Yo, I think I'm doing something wrong because I have the Cowboys number 1." And he went over his rankings, and I'm just like, "Hey, if you feel like that's how they shape up, I agree with what Matt said. You can't have Joe Burrow ranked okay and Dak Prescott ranked elite. I think if anything, that's the opposite. But
Dak Prescott is a better quarterback than Joe Burrow.
Not in any planet that I'm
on.
No way, sir.
What are you talking about?
Dude, Joe Burrow coming off of ACL had like 4,600 yards and 34 touchdowns with a 70% completion percentage.
Have y'all seen Dak's numbers? I mean, look, I hate the Cowboys as much.
It's the system.
It's the system, bro.
Just like you told me about Matt Stafford. Look, I think the Cowboys are good. I think they have a solid roster. I personally cannot make the case that being no number 1 overall. Go off, Mike. You totally did. But I think
Mike's just been mesmerized by Dak's little hip thrust thing.
That's what it is. Yeah. Got him in a trance.
You're getting finessed by the dance moves, bro. Don't fall for that shit.
All right. Look, all right. I'm not going to argue against you guys, but Dak
I would say that Dak and Joe Burrow are very similar in stature in terms of like their performance right now.
Okay. I got to see more from Joe. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's because I've seen Dak do almost 5,000 yards. You know what I'm saying? With only 11 interceptions. I've seen even this year, he was at almost 4,500 yards with only 10 interceptions. Like, this guy is, when he's healthy, he's in there. He's good. He's so good that people are saying they don't need Ezekiel Elliott. They don't need the run game anymore. I just don't. We'll see. We'll see
I
what
think
happens.
Tony
Again,
Pollard
Honestly,
is better.
I will say this for the Cowboys. Zeke is washed, but I think Pollard is actually pretty good.
Yeah.
He was effective against us. All right. Number
All right.
5 overall.
Number 5, the moment that everybody's been waiting for, the San Francisco 49ers. I have them ranked the lowest. I have them ranked at number 9. Mike, number 3. Zach, number 7. My main issue with the 49ers, one, unproven quarterback. We all want Trey Lance to be great, but we don't know. And that's a huge question mark. Number 2, this is a fucking throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks offensive line. Outside of Trent Williams, there's question marks at every other offensive line position. And that includes right tackle with Mike McGlinchey coming off of a devastating injury. Do not sleep on the severity of a torn quad, particularly for an athlete who his main job is to be in a 3-point stance and then fire off with your legs. You're putting pressure on that quad every time you do it. What is he going to look like coming back? The interior of the offensive line is going to be completely new. You lose Tomlinson in free agency. Alex Mack retires. You're hoping that Banks can become something. Brendel is the day one starter at center, according to Kyle and John, which is terrifying. You went out and signed Devontae West to a pretty big guarantee off of an undrafted free agent. You spent some late round draft picks, but nothing premium, right? You had an opportunity to go up and get Linderbaum from Iowa when he slid a little bit in the draft. They didn't do that. There were a couple other players that people were excited about. They didn't go out and get those guys. It's a scattershot approach, and I don't think that that's very helpful for a young quarterback. You need to have your line in order. And I talked about this. I don't think that the 49ers don't believe in Lance. I think that they're taking the Bengals approach where they worked outside in. Because if you look at the addition of Danny Gray, if you look at the addition of Ray McLeod, if you look at the addition of TDP, these are all players that supplement what Trey Lance does well, right? You want Trey Lance to throw a deep ball. What do you need? Some burners. I still think that Trey Sermon and TDP are going to be more useful than Elijah Mitchell in running, RPO style runs where you want your running back between the tackles and you give Trey Lance the option to run it outside of the edge. I think those players fit better. So from a schematic standpoint, I think the 49ers are doing much more to supplement Trey Lance, but those are the big question marks. The other question mark that we had from last season, which was the secondary, I think improved. You go out and get Charizard. You go out and it's another year of Emmanuel Mosley, year 2 of Ambry Thomas, who showed a lot of growth. Particularly in that week 18 win, that overtime interception that sealed the 49ers playoff run. You get, again, if you get anything, if you get 4 or 5 games out of Jason Verrett, that's a win, right? They go out and they draft a couple of guys, Womack to work the slot, a couple other guys. If you asked me last year what I thought the secondary needed, the 49ers went out and got it. We're not going to see a Josh Norman. We're not going to see a he who shall not be named Brian Allen. We're not going to see those guys, right? There's more respectable, more depth to this situation. A little bit of a question mark with Hufanga taking over the starting safety role from Tart, who left. But they get Odom from Indianapolis, who by all accounts is underrated as a safety. He's more known for his special teams, but can get out there. This team is very, very solid. You go and get Drake Jackson. You get a real pass rusher across from Nick Bosa, who's highly touted. It's what D Ford should have been, that now you put Drake Jackson over there. You get a hopefully healthy Javon Kinlaw. The defensive line is stacked once again. You get Brandon Ayuk. There's a little bit of a question mark with Deebo Samuel, but I ultimately think he's going to be brought back into the fold. The wide receiver talent is better. Tight end, you still have George Kittle. I think that there's question marks underneath that. I know they signed Croft and, Dwelly is still here. But, overall, the real question marks on this team and what stops them from being better overall are we don't know what we're getting from Trey Lance, and that offensive line, what is it going to be? And if it's not good, that sets up Trey Lance for failure.
All right. Am I up next? I have the guys the highest of everybody else. I saw a lot of hate from me this whole show. I want to see some damn applause or something in here. I have the Niners roster the highest on this Niners show, okay? Show me some GD love, all right? No, but so this was actually interesting. I didn't think they were going to finish this high because I just assumed it was going to be a lot lower. I gave Trey Lance a 10. That was the same grade I gave to all the other rookie quarterbacks. I gave Elijah Mitchell an 8, not elite at 15. Our wide receivers only scored a 45, and that's giving Debo the elite status. Jawan Jennings or Danny Gray, whichever one you want, is the third, the replacement level, and Brandon Ayuk the middle level. I gave George Kittle the elite status. Our offensive line somehow managed to get 72 points out of me, and that is good for, I believe, it's like a 9-way tie for second highest of everybody. It's a lot of people with a 72, but when I look at it, what I did was I gave Trent Williams the elite status. I gave our Aaron Banks, I just gave him the lowest grade. Jake Brendel, he is a pure center. I gave him the lowest grade also. But then Brunskill and McGlinchey, I made middle tier. So that's all it took was, 2 good offensive linemen and 1 elite guy to get you guys the grade that they earned there. But then when you got to the defensive line, I mean, that is where the 49ers are going to shine, right? And that's basically what shot them through the moon. The 49ers defensive line scored an 81. I believe that was the highest defensive line score I had of all of them doing this entire project here. And then our linebacking core got a 24, which I actually believe was supposed to be a 27, but I'm not here to argue that. I think it was supposed to be a little bit higher. Our secondary, again, the nickel position, guys, I'm looking at with 5 DBs on the field, they got a 68. Wasn't the best grade that we had out here, but it was better than middle of the pack, and I think that's how you end up with it. I will say the 49ers, for me, got the highest special teams ranking of everybody. I gave Robbie Gould elite. I also gave Tabor Pepper elite, and then I gave Mitch Wisnowski replaceable. So they got the highest special teams ranking from me. So you combine that with defensive line, good score from the offensive line, the highest defensive line grade, and that's how the 49ers end up with such a high ranking. Deebo Samuel and George Kittle also help out with their elite numbers as well. So it's a solid team.
David Hasselhoff, we lost DJ Jones, but you add Drake Jackson, you add a healthy Javon Kinlaw. Like, dude, they added a lot. What they added is more than enough to replace DJ Jones. I love DJ Jones as much as the next dude, but y'all can't act like he's the second coming of whoever the best defensive
Vince
tackle.
Wilfork. I had the Niners 7th overall. I went into this hoping that they'd be a top 10 team, and I think 7's pretty good. Hung Fat says top 10 this year, top 3 next year. That might be a little ambitious, but I do think we're going to see a jump next year from where they end up this year. They added a lot of talent on that defensive line. You just talked about it, but Drake Jackson, Kamoko Toure, Hassan Ridgeway. They brought back Kerry Hyder. Take that with a grain of salt. I know a lot of people aren't as excited as I am. I really liked Kerry Hyder when he was here. I'm still convinced that he had a conspiracy with the Niners to go steal money from Seattle and do nothing, come back. So that's where I'm setting my hat on with him. And the offense was, I don't know exactly where they finished last year, but I know they're pretty high up as far as scoring offense. And that was with Jimmy Garoppolo, who could not pass the ball more than 10 to 15 yards down the field, could not throw to the outside of the sideline, That's all going to change with Trey Lance. If I'm correct, this is going to take a huge step up as an offense. The offensive line scares me the most. If they had addressed it, I think I would have probably put them a little higher up, maybe closer to 5. But I think they're hoping that the undrafted free agents and the offensive linemen they drafted last year are going to step up and maybe fill in these holes here on the offensive line. Laken Tomlinson, in my opinion, is still the biggest loss for the 49ers. If they could have found a way, any way in the universe to keep him, that would have been huge, but they just were not able to keep up with that financial battle that the Jets put them in. So that's where they end up without Laken Tomlinson and hoping a guy can fill in for him. That's going to be pretty big to ask of either it's Colton McKivitz, Justin School, whoever it is. That's huge shoes to fill. So we'll see how it shapes up.
Oh, David Hasselhoff. Don't make me talk bad about DJ Jones, but he's got 7 sacks in 5 years. He's not no fucking pass rusher. Just stop. Like
he's a run stuffer. That's what he was really good.
Tackles to be pass rushers. Not every defensive tackle is built to be Aaron Donald. You got 15 to 20 coming from Bosa. If you can get 8 to 12 out of Jackson, you're set. And then you got Armstead and Javon Kinlaw in the middle. Like, it's fine, man. It's fine.
DJ Jones' best quality was plugging the middle. That's what he was fantastic at.
Right.
So Javon Kinlaw,
finally get a healthy Kinlaw, which he hasn't been apparently. Then who knows? But I think overall the defensive line got better. Number 4, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They would have been much lower if Tom Brady hadn't come back.
Agreed.
For me, they still have Evans. They still have Godwin. I know that they lost Rob Gronkowski, but Rob Gronkowski wasn't Gronk anymore. He was looking slow. He was looking old. I just think that addition by subtraction, again, kicking Bruce Arians upstairs, you know that Tom Brady's running that offense. You had players that wanted to come and play with Tom Brady when he came back. Gage signed with them from Atlanta. That gives them another wide receiving option. They've got a lot of weapons. Their defense is a little bit better, particularly when you look at their head coach now as a defensive guy. You let Tom run the offense. Defense is going to take care of itself. That's what your head coach is there for. I think working in conjunction, you're going to see a pretty damn good Tampa Bay team. Maybe this is the year that Tom Brady falls off a cliff, but he's Tom Brady until he's not. So that's why I have them ranked so high. I had them ranked number 3.
You got Mike.
All right. So I think I had them the lowest of everybody. And that's because one player can't set your team that high or that low based off of how I did it. So Tampa Bay, I did give Tom Brady the elite status. I gave their running back the middle tier. Their wide receivers, I know I gave 2 guys elite status because I love Goodwin and Mike Evans. Those are some of my favorite guys. Their offensive line had the highest ranking in this whole thing, and that's how they ended up so high for me. 96 on my little scale here. So that was pretty cool. And then their defensive line was only a 51. Nothing else was very, very high. Their DBs only got a 34. Their linebackers was actually pretty high. They got a 20, and that might have been the highest or second highest because the 49ers had a 24. So that might be like the second or third highest for linebackers as well. So their roster is decent. It's better than decent. But Tom Brady definitely helps, like what you guys are saying.
I think Akeem Hicks is being understated as an addition. I really liked him in Chicago. I believe he was in New Orleans before that. I think he's huge. Putting him next to Vita Vea is huge. They have a really good defensive line. Tom Brady coming back with Fournette, Evans, and Godwin. That's a good, quarterback, running back, and 2 receivers. Cameron Brate is solid as a tight end, maybe a little bit above replaceable status. But with Tom Brady, it's tough. It really is tough to put the Bucs lower than top 5. Who's 3? Who cracked top 3?
All right. Number 3, the Kansas City Chiefs. I had them ranked 5, Mike 4, Zach 3. So it's nitty-gritty time. I think that Tyreek Hill is going to hurt a little bit, but I also think that there's still enough to be picked up by Mecole Hardman. It won't be the worst drop-off in the world. It's still Patty Mahomes. It's still Travis Kelce. They did a lot of work to address, the line. They did a lot of work to, bolster some weaker areas. I still think this is a very good team. I think that they learned some things from that loss in the playoffs to the Cincinnati Bengals, and they tried to do their best to shore up any weaknesses. As long as Patrick Mahomes is there with Andy Reid as the coach and he's got weapons, that team is going to be dangerous.
You guys said it. I looked at this, and they are a well-rounded team. Elite quarterback, middle of the pack, role player for the running back, some elite wide receiver, elite tight end, very good offensive line, very good defensive line. Overall, this team was really good. I found out the weakness here is their linebacking core. And again, that's with only having 2 linebackers, guys. Keep that in mind. So that's what really weighed them down here. But yeah, this is a solid team. It's a solid team.
I agree. I mean, Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, the addition of Juju Smith-Schuster, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Travis Kelce, It's tough. It's good. They're going to put up points, and I think they have a solid defense. Maybe not solid, but improved defense from last year. So top 3, I think, is about fair because they're just going to compete with any team out there. They're going to be tough to beat and have a lot of talent.
Okay, number 2, and my number 1 team overall, the Los Angeles Chargers. This team is fucking stacked, dude.
Yeah.
They had problems on the offensive line, so they went out and they draft Zion Johnson. They go out and, sign Zach Bailey off of waivers from Washington. They signed Kyle Van Noy. They trade for Khalil Mack. You got Derwin James still. You got Asante Samuel. They signed J.C. Jackson from the Patriots. They went all in on this thing. And Justin Herbert's coming into year 3. You still have Mike Williams. You still have Allen. You still have, just up and down the roster looks really good. Austin Eckler's like, meh, whatever. But when you really look at they're stacked, man. They're really stacked. And I don't know. If it wasn't the Chargers, if this was any other team, I'd be like, dude, they're easily the front runner for the Super Bowl. But I almost put them at number 2 simply because they're the Chargers, and you never underestimate the Chargers' ability to screw something up.
Yeah, I don't have much to add there. Top to bottom, one of the most stacked teams in the NFL. It's just a matter of coaching now, and we got to see what happens.
The addition of Khalil Mack, Asante Samuel Jr. going into year 2, Joey Bosa. I'm as high on Justin Herbert as anyone in the league. I think he has potential to be a top 3 quarterback within the next 2 to 3 years, if he's not already that within the next year. I think top 2 are 2 overall for me. I think that's fair. They have so much fucking talent, so much talent at every position. We were going over it last week, and we're just like, holy shit, they are stacked. I'm excited to see what comes out of that division.
Absolutely, that division is nuts. That leaves 1. And, I almost put them at number 1, and I think they deserve to be number 1. They're number 1 everywhere. The one thing that I would, do, and it's the Buffalo Bills. I had them number 2. I almost put them number 1 simply because they play in the AFC East, and that's a weak division. The Chargers are going to lose a lot of games by attrition. And you look at Buffalo, but man, Buffalo's really talented. They have some, I think they're a little thin at the running back position. Singletary's fine. He's not great, but the wide receivers are really good. The offensive line has improved. Josh Allen is an elite quarterback, like elite. The defense is just nice. They get Tre'Davious White back this year. He was injured last year. They get him back this year, and you add him to a team that was already really talented. I believe they finished top 10 on both sides of the ball in the NFL, and you just add talent to that. The Buffalo Bills, it's almost not cool to root for them, right? The last couple of years, it's like, man, they're underrated, right? Let's root for Buffalo. If nobody else is going to do it, let's root for Buffalo. But they're so good that they're almost the bully on the block now. They will become Kansas City if they're not careful, and everyone's going to root against him. I think, man, they just look really good.
Yeah, I have absolutely nothing to add to them. I started cheering for them for the moment they got Josh Allen, and they've given me reason to almost want to hate on him. But I think I'm locked in with Josh Allen. I can't do it. Like you said, stacked top to bottom. I think their weakness on their team, and this is really trying to nitpick, is the linebacking core. They have one really good linebacker, then the other guys are just replaceable. This is a phenomenal fucking team. They're a lot of fun to watch, even if you're not a Bills fan. They're a phenomenal team. So
I agree. There's so much talent here. Josh Allen just takes them so high up, in my opinion. Stephon Diggs, Gabriel Davis, hell of a 1-2 at the wide receiver position. Dawson Knox, criminally underrated, especially with Josh Allen throwing him the ball. And the defense, just, it's insane. And then they get Von Miller. Man, I don't know, man. I know a lot of people are picking.
Pass rush was one of their weaknesses last year, and they did a lot to.
I'm excited. Von Miller. They already had Tremaine Edmonds, Shaq Lawson, Ed Oliver, Jordan Poyer, and Micah Hyde in the secondary. I think they're going to make some noise, get far again into the AFC playoffs. I would not be surprised to see them in the Super Bowl. So we did it. What's up, Mike?
What did I do, Melissa? What is happening tonight? What? I don't care how much Von Miller got paid. That has nothing. What are we talking about? What did I do? It's like no matter what I say, it's like, really, Mike? Come on. I just don't understand what I did tonight. I thought I was behaving myself.
She's had enough of your shit. The 49ers we had ranked, was it 7th, Matt?
Fifth,
excuse me.
Yeah. Top 5, man. You got to take it. And that's with some question marks. So, and again, this is all just on paper. The season is definitely not going to shake out like this. It never does, right? It's not worth the ink we wrote it down on. So, it was just something fun we really wanted to do, especially as we head into training camp. There's going to be a lot of questions, a lot more answers. We're going to see what happens. We'll get back to the normal Jimmy Garoppolo talk, when's he leaving, and all that stuff next time. But Zach, tell us about the gold.
Yes, sir, guys. You can first we got to thank our sponsors. Yes, you can now buy gold for as little as $50 a month. You no longer have to fork out hundreds of dollars to get your gold. With inflation being at 9.1%, I just dropped my gold stamp. You can start buying gold, and it's 2.5 grams. As soon as you reach the market price, Acre Gold will send you it discreetly in the mail. Matt calls it my gold stamp because it is a little small. It's 2.5 grams, guys. Like I said, the dollar's not holding up that well, but you know what does? Gold. It only makes sense, Red and Gold Standard Podcast, to be sponsored by Acre Gold. So click the link in the description and start buying gold today for as little as $50 a month. You can't beat it. You really can't. It's a fantastic way to start accruing some savings. Also, we got a shout out Terrell Owens, 81vino.com. Promo code Hive will get you 10% off. You'll get free shipping on 2 or more bottles. Go get some 81 by Terrell Owens. Support 49ers legend. You can also buy some autograph bottles while you're there. 81vino.com. 81vino.com. Promo code Hive. 10% off. Free shipping on 2 or more bottles. All right, guys. We're going on 2.5 hours. It's a Sunday night, Mike. You're on the East Coast. You're even a lot later than us. We're going to wrap this show up. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Hit like, hit subscribe. Matt will personally bring you a slice of chocolate cake to your door before the sun rises.
It'll be dry, though, so get yourself some 81 Vino to pair with it.
There you go. Mike, let the folks know where to find you. I'm sure they already know, but let them know again.
Yeah, man, guys, this is the Twitter handle, or it was right there. But you guys can follow me, Mike. No, it's all right, right there. Mike Andrews 83 on Twitter. Also, guys, follow Nothing But Niners here on YouTube if you aren't already. Follow the Nothing But Niners Twitter handle. It is Nothing But 9ERS as well. That's all I got for you guys.
All right. Well, with that being said, thank you as always for joining us. We loved having you here. This was a really fun night. We got to go through the entire NFL, talk our shit, do our rankings. We hope we rank number 1 with you guys. So come back and join us next time. Training camp's right around the corner, guys. It's only 10 days away. So it's
9. Today's Sunday, right?
I think it's the 27th.
Oh, no, it's the 26th.
Well, hey, I think they report the 26th. They start to anyway. It's close, right? We're right there. Football's going to be back. And we're just looking forward to bringing you the most content we can. So join us here next time. Until then, for all of us here, until next time, go Niners.